Hello. And welcome aboard the Dream Harrier, the ship that flies your gaming space. I'm of course its captain, Snake Man. We have been on a long journey through 428 Shibuya Scramble. I think this is the 8th stream. It's been on weekends, and I've been wanting to do two sessions a weekend, but that never happens. And I missed last weekend, but you know, hey, we're getting to it, right? We're all here. Hello, Plombo. Making sure my controller still works because this game is mysterious. It actually wasn't working. I had to reboot the game, but that was because my controller was in switch mode. I needed to put in X input. Did I do 2 once? Awesome. Rare instance of me being good at streaming. We have 35 different bad ends. That's great. All right. So, we are in... what is this? 4 o'clock? We're in 4 o'clock. Right? Yeah. I'm good at 24-hour time. And we've only accomplished really one thing major. And that was that Achi took Hitomi to the hospital. Well, they didn't... she didn't need to go to the hospital. Apparently she's fine. But we had to go check on our sister. And doing so led Achi into connecting with Jack Stanley. It'll be interesting to see what's up. It also... Achi's dad seems to maybe be part of this as... or at least he's hired the detective to kill Hitomi? Because they want Hitomi's heart? Because she has the weird blood type that Achi's sister has? And Achi's dad told the doctor to, like, expect someone that day with the blood type. So, you know, there's that. That was pretty heavy. But that's all that Achi's been up to. He's actually has to be continued at 1635. I mean, we had 2 choices. I guess we made the right ones. I don't remember. And we've got a lot to do. Minorikawa. Last thing Minorikawa ran into was that Toyama committed suicide. A surprising lack of Achi dying? I don't know about that one. He got stabbed and then he got run over. Achi's dad might be insane. So yeah, Minorikawa, the last thing we left him off on was that he was contemplating Toyama's suicide. Which, the only reason he thinks it's a suicide is he saw the explosion and what's the name of the girl that he's working with? I forgot her name. She told her that the little girl told her that Toyama killed himself. We don't know if he's dead. No, Kanan is not the girl Minorikawa's working with. Kanan is the assassin that Achi and Hitomi know, and Maria knows. Oh yeah, what was up with Maria? What did she last get into? Oh yeah, she saw the explosion and is now in the hands of the detective who wants to kill Hitomi. Let's go see how that's going. Taken by the man with the cane. I spent a lot of stream recapping, but I think it's helpful. I walk counter to the throng of people heading towards the scene of the explosion. The explosion happened in Shibuya, Jinan Wonchom, near the intersection of Koendori and Oregon Hill. There's a gun pressed against my back, leaving me no choice but to continue marching forward. I don't have time for this right now. There's something I need to do. Yeah, he was getting involved, and he saw the explosion. He talked to Kano. He knows that there's more going on. Like, there's some serious shit going on. Like, he overheard the Jack Stanley and Kano conversation about the virus. So he knows about the virus. But he kind of lost his drive at the end there because of Toyama's suicide. I think he got it back. I think he lit a fire in him through a choice. But yeah, that's what Norikawa's up to right now. My frantic sense of urgency grows and grows. Kanan. The only clue I have is that name. The other hazy snippets that have surfaced in my memory provide no answers. Please, just tell me, I murmur. Do you know who I am? When the man with the cane doesn't answer, I stop in my tracks. I'm going to start shouting, I warn him. If you want to find out who you are, then do as I say. The barrel of the gun jabs more forcefully into my back. Once we find Hitomi Osawa, you'll remember, whether you like it or not. Guess I have no choice but to keep moving then. Are your memories that precious to you? The man mutters as we start to move again. I'm taken aback by the question. Well, yes. I mean, isn't that pretty normal? There's a bit of a pause before he replies, his voice sad and distant. You're not going to remember just the good times, you know. What do you mean? I mean that sad and painful memories are going to resurface too. I guess I hadn't really thought about that. But still, whatever kind of memories they are, they're all a part of me. I'm the person I am now because of the sorrow and pain, too. I want to remember. I want to remember who I am. The gunman directs me dispassionately along a series of quiet side streets. Right here. I stop at his words. In front of us is an old multi-tenant office building. We ride the elevator to the 8th floor, then use the emergency exit to take the stairs up to the rooftop. A cool breeze blows across my cheek. Sit down there. I do as he says, settling myself on the outdoor air conditioning unit. The man lowers his gun, but keeps it in hand. We'll wait here for a bit. For how long? He lets out a rueful chuckle. Guess we'll have to wait and see. I decide there's no point in trying to fight with him. For now, I have to hope he's telling the truth, and whatever's coming will help me get my memories back. If I don't know my past, how can I know what to do about this Kanan stuff, or anything else? I stare up at the sky as I wait for whatever this assassin is waiting for. The silence between us is suffocating. Finally, I can't take it any longer. Hey, so I think this is yours. I hold out the notebook I picked up earlier. The man's surprise is plain on his face. Where did you get that? I saw the picture inside. He snatches the book out of my hand. Then he flips through it, looking sad. I'm afraid that another agonizing silence is about to descend when he speaks at last. This is a picture of me and my childhood friends. Who are your friends? I want to know. His voice is low and quiet. We were inseparable back then, back when we were kids. The boy here, he liked to fiddle with machines, always doing things like taking apart radios and whatnot, and putting them back together. Okay. So I think we can infer that's Achi's dad. He was a total bookworm too, so he got picked on a lot. Achi's dad was supposedly going to like a super big school, super cool school or something. But I was always there to save him from the bullies. All of a sudden, the guy's in a sharing mood, I guess. I can feel his aura of murderous rage starting to abate. Murderous rage aura. The girl here was the same age as us, but she felt more like a big sister. Whatever stupid things my other friend and I got up to, she was always willing to laugh it off. Do we think it's a love triangle? No, that'd be rude. I don't think Maria would be this rude. What was her name? I asked, curious to know more. Kotone. We dated when we were in high school. Oh, wow. But I get the impression from that picture that the other boy must have liked Kotone too, right? The good man's eyes widen. You're very astute. Call it a woman's intuition, I say proudly. Then I ask the obvious follow-up. So what happened to you two? I dumped her. The man carefully slips the notebook into the pocket inside his jacket. So yeah, that's probably Achi's mom. I forget if we had a name for Achi's mom. I don't know how much we've actually learned about Achi's mom. How come? I ask. I felt it was for the best. He lets out a little chuckle, then stands up and brushes the dust off his pants. He looks strangely lonely. Keep out. Just let me know how the volume is. Again, the keep out noise is always louder than everything else in the game. But the music's nice, so I want to make sure you guys can hear the music. So, Maria is in the keep out. Why don't we check up on Osawa? I don't want to know how people feel. The last thing we know about Osawa was that he got brought up to speed on what happened. He was told about the explosion. He learned about his that one dude dying, Takano. All I want to know is what viruses feel. I prefer viruses because they make no move to encroach on me from the other side of my microscope. Yes, his wife was very upset. Which implies that they had a thing. They leave me free to let my thoughts wander as I wish. And while it may be true to say I understand viruses, I've never been able to understand my fellow humans. I don't know them. I don't know a single fundamental thing about them. With Tanaka dead, trying to use... sorry, I called him Takano. Tanaka. It's been a while. It's been a week. Tanaka. With Tanaka dead, trying to use the backup passwords for the fingerprint scanner had become a hopeless endeavor. The only remaining means of gaining entry to the storage area was to issue an emergency unlock request to the electronic lock manufacturer. And in order to do that, they needed approval from the 6 members of the board of directors. It's okay. We got there in the end. Returning to his study, Osawa called Makino's personal cell phone. What is it? Makino said gruffly as soon as he picked up. Osawa informed him of the situation, including Tanaka's death, and the fact that Maria was infected. The news left Makino at a loss for words. Please, Osawa begged. You need to hold an emergency board meeting. Makino was silent for a few moments. I'm afraid I can't do that. Why not? Are you just going to sit by and let my daughter die? Osawa raged. And not just her. If Maria goes symptomatic. If Maria goes symptomatic. That was still only an if, but Osawa was reluctant to put his fears into words. If she goes fully symptomatic, the UA virus will sweep through all of Tokyo. I realize that, Makino replied, but one of the board members is overseas on business. Holding a meeting is impossible. Despite the gravity of the situation, he sounded astoundingly nonchalant. Osawa couldn't back down now. There must be some other option, like a web conference or something. That doesn't help us if we can't get in touch with him, Makino huffed. He went missing a few days ago in the middle of his business trip. The head of Okashi Pharmaceuticals' New York branch has been missing since April 25th, 9 p.m. local time. There have been no demands for ransom, and so the New York Police Department is investigating the possibility of some other form of foul play. That's 3 days before the events that are taking place now. Osawa was almost too appalled to be angry. That's the most ridiculous lie I've ever heard. Would you like to speak to my on-site contact if you don't believe me? This was like arguing with a child. If Makino was deliberately working against him, he'd never know if this disappearance was real or not. In that case, can you please appoint a representative in his stead? Osawa pleaded. Selecting a representative is a complicated process. Even if we started right now, it would take until sometime tomorrow afternoon to complete. Tomorrow afternoon? By then it would be too late for any of this to matter. Sir, can't you see how absurd the things you're saying are? What would you have me do? Makino barked. These are the realities of corporate politics. I understand, sir. You will do nothing for my daughter. That's what you're saying. That's not what I'm saying, Makino replied. Look, I'll see what I can do to appoint a representative more quickly. He hung up. His tone had suggested that waiting for an appointee wouldn't be a terribly hopeful prospect. I have no more allies, Osawa thought. All I have left now are foes. He couldn't count on anyone anymore, Osawa was just gonna have to get the antiviral himself. Still, he'd just have to take Makino at his word. Right now, that was his only course of action. No, we're doing it. We're breaking in. He couldn't count on anyone anymore. Osawa was just gonna have to get the antiviral by himself. Tanaka might be dead, but there still must be some way to get that lock open. Taking extra care to avoid the notice of detectives, Osawa snuck out of the house and headed for the garage. Oh man, we're double keep out. Yeah, he's done sitting in this room. The time for action is now. Alright, so Maria and Osawa are in a keep out and Achi is as to be continued. That only leaves Minorikawa and Kano. Minorikawa is... I guess I partially did Minorikawa to get to Achi's keep out, I guess? Or to keep Achi alive? It was to keep Achi alive. So let's go see how he's doing. Last time we talked to the one guy, Achi's... Not Achi's replacement, but a person in the gang that Achi used to lead, who is very maniacal and wants to kill people and be a badass. So yeah, we chose Is It Fun hitting people with that thing. And I guess I kept it going. Is it fun hitting people with that thing? The corner of Punk's mouth curled up. Okay, yeah, so we already did all this. Alright, so we end up finding the taxi driver. You look tired, sir. Yeah, I guess so. His reply was barely audible. Well, we can't hit Achi with a taxi, right? But we could hit Osawa. No, I like the idea this taxi is just going to murder someone. The taxi stopped outside of Heaven Publishing. Minorikawa left a 1,000-yen bill on the seat and exited the cab. He was stumbling his way towards the building when someone called out to him. Mr. Minorikawa! Oh, it was Osawa. I mean, I did the girl voice because I thought it was the girl he's been working with. Mr. Minorikawa. For a moment, Minorikawa didn't recognize the man now idling his sedan at the curb. But when he took a closer look, he realized it was Kenji Osawa. Do we jump back? Let's jump back. Rip the tape right open. As he was driving past Aoyama, Osawa spotted a man he recognized walking along. He pulled up alongside him and called out through the window. Mr. Minorikawa. Oh, Mr. Osawa. Sorry, but I haven't been able to look into that thing you asked about yet. I see. That's quite alright. The business with I and Tanaka could wait until later. Right now he needed to focus on protecting Shibuya. If he didn't get his hands on that antiviral... You're caught up in something big, aren't you? How did you know that? Because I'm Minorikawa. Well, the man's egotism had some justification. Maybe he didn't know the details, but he clearly had some inkling about Osawa's situation. Something clicked in Osawa's mind. He was up against the wall. Okoshi Pharmaceutical had told him that they were going to just let Maria die. He was past the point where he could resolve this peacefully, but he was not going to give up without a fight. No, Minorikawa is just that clever. To be fair, Minorikawa has also heard about the virus thing, and since Osawa is a man who studies viruses, I think he could put 2 and 2 together. When it came time, Osawa was sure this man could help him. Well, that'll make this simpler, I guess. Get in. I'll tell you everything. Minorikawa thought for a moment, then got into the passenger seat. As he drove to the lab, Osawa filled Minorikawa in on all the details. The reporter listened intently, occasionally interrupting to ask a question. So how are you planning on getting your hands on the antiviral? He asked when Osawa had finished. I'm not sure. I figured I'd think of something after I got there. Minorikawa let out a nasal chuckle. Just improvising, huh? Ah, well, I'll back you up. At least I know I found my way into something important. They pulled up outside the lab and the two men got out of the car. Immediately, a team of security guards burst out through the gate and forced Osawa to the ground. Hey, Minorikawa protested. What the hell is this? The guards had grabbed him as well. Unhand me, Osawa yelled. I'm Kenji Osawa. This is my lab. Mr. Osawa, Minorikawa shouted. What the hell is going on here? But Osawa was just as confused. He looked up to see Makino standing before him. Sir, tell these thugs to let me go. But Makino just frowned silently down at him. So, not only will you not help me, you're actively getting in my way. Osawa glared up at his boss. I'm gonna lower the music just a tidge. Maria's life. No, countless human lives are at risk. My controller stopped working. Why? I went 1 second to look to OBS. Now I have to play with the keyboard. And there's nothing that you alone can do about that. That's why I need you to understand. Makino gave a signal to the guards, who proceeded to drag Osawa away. The scientist writhed with despair at his own impotence. In the end, there was nothing I could do. Makino's meddling. Osawa decided to get the antiviral directly, and even got some unexpected help from Minorikawa along the way. Unfortunately, upon arriving at the lab, they had a run-in with Makino and his security goons. It looks like Osawa is just not going to be able to get into his laboratory. He'll have to make some other decision. Dang. I don't know how to get to the timeline on keyboard. No, it's cool. I like it. I thought it was F2. It just wouldn't let me in, I guess, until later. Why controller? Oh, I wanna figure this out. I'm going back to my controller tester. Yep, controller tester sees the controller, no problem. It is just this game. Apparently mouse click is a action. The keyboard controls are just like inane. Like it's enter, tab, F2, and escape are the keyboard controls. Alright, so I guess we chose the wrong move. What happens if we go to Minorikawa though? Do we get a different bad end? It sounds like we have to change Osawa's mind. Ah, Mr. Osawa. Sorry, but I haven't been able to look into that thing you asked about yet. I see. That's quite alright. Osawa looked pale and haggard. Minorikawa's reporter sense started tingling. This guy is the key to something. He recalled what he heard the detective and his buddy talking about back at the scene of the explosion. Roughly 8 hours ago, they infected Maria Osawa with the UA virus. If we don't administer Kenji Osawa's antiviral before she develops symptoms... You're caught up in something big, aren't you? How did you know that? Because, the reporter said simply, I'm Minoru Minorikawa. Osawa rolled his eyes. Well, that'll make this simpler, I guess. Get in. I'll tell you everything. Minorikawa hesitated. This might be his big chance to land a beyond incredible scoop. Yet it felt like it was too late to matter. Still, landing a major story, selling out an issue of 4-star general gossip, and putting Heaven Publishing on the road to solvency, all that was the least he could do in Toyama's memory. You don't drop a story until you have what you need. Maybe it was too late to save Toyama, but Minorikawa got in the car. Osawa's tale was beyond anything Minorikawa had imagined. So, they send you threatening emails, devise a plan to kidnap your daughter in order to get the antiviral. And now that that's failed, they're turning to bioterrorism. Finally, Minorikawa was able to flesh out the story behind the conversation he'd overheard earlier. As he did, he could feel a growing sense of exhilaration. So basically, they're now effectively holding all the people in Shibuya hostage and demanding the antiviral. Is that it? Before Osawa could answer, a new idea occurred to Minorikawa. Wait, hold on. Why didn't they just start by taking the whole city hostage? Why did they need to go through all the trouble of kidnapping your daughter? I don't know. Osawa shaking his head. Perhaps they wanted the ransom money? For a mere 50 million yen? I can't imagine international terrorists bothering for that much. You can't know how terrorists think, Osawa spat. Let's just assume, though. Could there be some other reason they abducted your daughter? Osawa didn't reply. He was probably too preoccupied with finding a way to save his infected daughter to think about anything else. Still, something about the course of events didn't quite add up to Minorikawa. But whatever the case, if the criminals were after this antiviral, then sticking with Osawa ought to bring him closer to the truth. Minorikawa was still mulling that over when they arrived at the laboratory. Well, we know how this is gonna end, but... The two men hopped out of the car and were immediately rushed by a pair of security guards, who subdued them in a matter of moments. Hey, Minorikawa protested. What the hell is this? Unhand me, Osawa yelled. I'm Kenji Osawa. This is my lab. But evidently that didn't matter to the guards. Another man emerged from the building. He and Osawa exchanged a few brief words. Judging from the tone of the conversation, this was someone who outranked Osawa at the company. Take him away. Oh, this has to do with Osawa deciding he needs to get the antiviral, and he just happens to run into Minorikawa. I'm seeing this from both viewpoints. Hey, Minorikawa shouted at the man as he began to walk away. Don't you know what's going to happen in Shibuya? Don't you care? If you stand by and let the people of the city die, Okoshi Pharmaceutical is going to be held responsible. The man stopped in his tracks. And if that happens, you'll be ruined personally too, Minorikawa added. You know I'm right. That will be up for the police to decide. You're gonna regret this. Don't be a fool. Minorikawa's resolve was unwavering. His pen would mete out justice. He might have come close to forgetting what he once stood for, but now the old fire was back. I see. It seems this isn't something to leave unchecked. The man gestured with his jaw. Oh, okay, that was Makino talking. Take him as well. More security guards surrounded Minorikawa. Hey, stop it, let me go. But though he struggled fiercely, there was no escape. Once he was dragged through those laboratory doors, Minorikawa never wrote another article again. They killed him! And then everyone in Shibuya died. And no one learned the truth. Detained at the lab. Minorikawa accompanied Osawa to the lab, but there was no getting past the security guards. And if even Osawa can't get into his own lab, there's no real reason to go there. It's Osawa who needs to decide on a different course of action here. I get it. I just wanted to see the other bad end. It won't let me go to the timeline. I keep wishing it would. Let me fix this. Alright. Osawa, you can't take it into your own hands. I believed in him. His tone had suggested that waiting for an appointee wouldn't be a terribly hopeful prospect. I have no more allies, Osawa thought. All I have left now are foes. Still, he'd just have to take Makino at his word. Right now, that was his only course of action. Osawa sat down in front of his computer and quietly closed his eyes. If only I could get to sleep and wake up tomorrow morning and find all of this resolved. All I'm asking for is a miracle. But he knew reality would never be so kind. He could hold his eyes shut as long as he wanted, and it wouldn't make this hopeless situation go away. He felt the anxiety welling up inside him until it seemed like he was going to explode. Needing a distraction from the helplessness, Osawa opened up AyaNet. He knew that this was mere escapism, but he couldn't just sit there and do nothing while waiting for Makino to call back. He posted a new topic with the title, Aya Fortune Teller? I tried the Aya Fortune Teller. My results basically said I was a bad person who can't connect to the world around me. And you know what? That's exactly right. I'm only interested in my own little world. That's probably why my wife and my assistant at work got so fed up with me. It's the same with my 2 daughters. What sort of things are they interested in? Do they have a lot of friends? What are their aspirations for the future? I don't know any of those things. It never even occurred to me to find out. I'm such a terrible father. Osawa's fingers ceased their tapping on the keyboard as he thought back to when Maria and Hitomi were younger. Daddy, Daddy! The 2 girls would follow him around like a pair of puppies. Their father was their everything. That much was clear just by looking at their faces. He'd felt a ticklish giddiness at having his girls cling to him so. He'd never felt anything like it in his life. But there were times where he also found it tiresome. I am sick of being the person I am. There's nothing I can do about that, though. I'm sure it's far too late for me to change. He poured out all of his negative emotions into his post. It felt like a stream of consciousness drivel, but he didn't hesitate to write it down all the same. He wanted other people to know what a miserable excuse for a human being he was. At last, when he couldn't think of anything else to add, he posted his bitter confession to the forum. He was staring numbly at the monitor when he heard a furious shout from the next room. You've got to be kidding me! It was Kajiwara, and Osawa had never heard him so angry. Oh, I thought it was gonna be the wife, so I did a wife voice. Osawa headed into the living room and found Kajiwara embroiled in a vehement? I've never said this word. Vehement argument with the other detectives. I don't care what HQ's policy is. I will not just quietly go along with this. Kajiwara had already screamed himself red in the face. You're out of line, snapped one MPD detective. I hit the caps lock instead of the tab. Kiichi Sawatari, with the Metropolitan Police Department's first criminal investigations section. Having heard of Kajiwara's past deeds from friends at the Shibuya precinct, he recommended to his boss that Kajiwara be assigned to the investigation at the Osawa residence. After seeing the detective's interactions with Osawa, he is confident that his recommendation was in the right. However, given the circumstances, he can't help but take a cold stance towards Kajiwara. Hold your tongue. I don't care if I'm out of line. You may have talent, I'll give you that, the other detective said. But you're a precinct detective, and this isn't your jurisdiction. It's not your place to question orders from higher up. Wait, Osawa thought. Kajiwara really is a real detective after all. Go on, explain the situation to Mr. Osawa. Typo in the script. Kajiwara bit his lip in frustration at the other detective's order. Very well. But before he could say more, Osawa noticed that the police equipment had all been cleared off the table. Hold on, Osawa said. What's going on? Has something happened? Allow me to explain, sir, Kajiwara said. His bitterness showed plainly on his face. We've been recalled, sir. The MPD has established the security force headed by members of its Public Security Bureau to deal with the bioterrorist threat. Because the kidnapping task force has not yet found Maria, and she is infected with the virus, the task force personnel has instead been absorbed into the security force and will continue their work under its direction. Osawa narrowed his eyes, fighting to keep the confusion from his face. What do you mean by that? He was shaking, terrified to have his suspicions confirmed. I am truly sorry, sir, for having been unable to help you. Kajiwara gave a deep and solemn bow. But Maria, what's going to happen to Maria? Another unit has been tasked with bringing your daughter into custody, sir. That much at least Osawa could process. You're gonna place her under quarantine, aren't you? Kajiwara's lips stiffened, but he nodded. In order to minimize the spread of the virus, so I'm told. No, Osawa cried. You can't do that. If you do, there won't be any way to save her. His head spun. Please, I beg of you. You need to get Maria to me. I might be able to save her. When Kajiwara didn't respond, he turned to the other detectives. Please. Don't. You can't place Maria under quarantine. The detective's only answer was to avert their eyes. Why are you all ignoring me? Please, you have to listen. If you bring her to me, I can figure something out. I know I can. He plunked himself down on the floor, yelling and flailing his arms like a child throwing a tantrum. The detectives exchanged sullen looks with one another and then walked off and left him there. He knew he must be a sorry sight, but nevertheless he kept shouting after them. Please don't stand by and let my daughter die. Only Kajiwara remained with him in the living room. What a lively living room this is. I'm sorry, sir. This was beyond my ability to stop. He gave another apologetic bow. Osawa felt suddenly deflated. No, you've done a fine job, Detective Kajiwara. It's me who should be sorry. I've made such a disgraceful display of myself. That's not true, sir. In fact, I'm deeply moved. I can tell how much Maria must mean to you. They don't have anything. They have one painting that's barely hanging on by like a string, and then a fireplace, and that's it. That's the living room. Osawa shook his head. If I'd really been thinking about Maria, I would have made more of an effort to work with you detectives more. That was all just self-absorbed shouting. A moment of emotional selfishness. And yet, as a result, you convinced me to stay here with you. Kajiwara proceeded to pull out his phone and put in a request with the task force headquarters to remain at the Osawa residence. He got into a heated spat with his commanding officer. but ultimately received permission to stay on as the police liaison with Osawa. Well, the detective said when he'd hung up, you see, there's some people who are legitimately moved by parental display of emotion. Even if I'm not certain that I can do very much in staying here with you. That's not true, Osawa replied. There's plenty that you can help me with. He looked into Kajiwara's face and smiled. For instance, I can have a banana whenever I want. That fried egg on rice you made me was delicious. You find things that have gone missing. This is so out of character, but I have to see. I just have to know. I can have a banana whenever I want. Banana. Everyone wants the banana. This is just leaning more into the yaoi between Mr. Osawa and Kajiwara. Kajiwara returned Osawa's grin even more brightly. Yes, of course. By all means, have as many as you like. He then produced a pair of bananas from his pocket, handing one to his companion. Osawa peeled his banana and took a hearty bite. The mild sweetness was pleasant and soothing. It was a flavor that brought back memories. I often eat bananas when I go to the park with my daughter, Kajiwara muttered between mouthfuls. I didn't realize you had a daughter, detective. She just started grade school this year. Oh, really? She must be adorable. Well, I don't get to see her as much as I'd like. A lonely sort of smile crossed Kajiwara's face. Why is that? Doing this job caused me to neglect my family. Finally, about 2 years ago, my wife hit me with the divorce paperwork. Aw. I wanted to be able to keep our daughter with me, but... well, the law tends to favor the mother when it comes to custody issues. The detective then pulled 2 bars of Meiji chocolate from his pocket. That's that good shit. It's good to have something sweet when you're exhausted, he said. Osawa took one, but said nothing. More recently, my ex-wife has been talking about getting remarried, Kajiwara continued. And she wants me to stop seeing our daughter. He bit into his own chocolate bar with a soft snap. It's no less than I deserve, but it still hurts. Osawa couldn't help but sympathize. The man was losing his daughter. Here was someone who he could really talk to. He was sure of that much now. Detective? I apologize. I've kept things from you because I was worried they involved classified corporate information. Oh? Kajiwara's eyes glimmered with interest. Earlier today I received some emails. They could be pertinent to the case. Would you mind letting me see them? Osawa shook his head. On the contrary. See, we made the right decision. We continued the yaoi between the two. Back in front of his computer, Osawa saw that IONET was still open. Pretty Honey had responded to his forum post. Oh, thank you, Pretty Honey. No, we need to read Pretty Honey's response. One moment. Just let me read this. Osawa read the response. This is probably important. Pretty Honey seems like he gets things. I got that same result. Well, we haven't gotten to those emails yet. Do you really think it's too late? Don't give up hope. Hang in there. Yay! It's never too late. Every family has its share of problems. Like, you'll never find one that doesn't, I'm sure. When it comes to family, there's no such thing as game over. You don't remember? Oh, now you remember. So don't let it get you down, Julie. Osawa's fake name is Julie on the forum. That's good. Besides, I did learn one thing from reading your post. In the end, the father's happiness is his daughter's happiness. Kajiwara appeared into the monitor. A young girl is posting to a forum for people 40 and older? It's pretty, honey. She always replies to my threads. The detective furrowed his brow. I see. Is something the matter? No. That last line there just has me curious is all. A young girl writing something like that. Well, that's neither here nor there right now. Let me see those emails if you would. Alright, time for the emails. Osawa opened his email. He pulled up the image of the human testing on the monitor. What is this? Kajiwara stared at the monitor as if unable to look away. These are images from an unauthorized clinical testing of an antiviral drug I developed, carried out by my company without my knowledge. Images of a... I'm sorry, what was that? The detective frowned at the unfamiliar terminology. In simple terms, the antiviral is a wonder drug to combat the UA virus. Hold on. Maria is infected with the UA virus, isn't that right? Yes. UA is a species of virus discovered in South Africa relatively recently. Roughly 12 hours after infection, patients develop a cough, then a fever, then begin vomiting, and ultimately begin to bleed uncontrollably from all over, resulting in death. The mortality rate is... Osawa was reluctant to say it. Kajiwara held his breath, waiting. It's near 100%. Kajiwara shuddered. But wait, he said after a moment. If you have this wonder drug, then Maria... Osawa shook his head. Without Tanaka, I have no means of getting it out of the lab. Kajiwara's frown deepened. I see. It may not be much to go on, but I think we could put together at least one piece of our little mystery here. Something difficult or impossible to explain. An enigma. You see plenty of books titled The Mystery of Such and Such, or The Secret of Whatever on bookstore shelves, but when you read them, you're invariably disappointed by the mystery not being that mysterious after all. 428 be spittin'. Yo, you mystery books and bookshelves in bookstores are trash. Pardon me one moment. Kajiwara inspected the email address of the sender, A, then brought up the mail header. You don't see email addresses like this much. It's seemingly from a foreign country, but that may be fake. You can tell that just from the email? The detective flashed a little grin. Take a look here. So if we just do this, and then this... His fingers flew over the keyboard, calling up the header details, singling out the received from field. This set of 4 numbers at the bottom is the sender's IP address. Think of it as an ordinarily hidden location marker of sorts. As he spoke, the detective pulled up a website called IP Station. He copied and pasted the set of 4 numbers and pressed the enter key. The monitor showed the name of the provider, connection method, and other such details. A vendor that provides an internet connection service. A typical internet connection requires a dedicated line. Customers who do not already have one must make a contract with for one with the provider. When the provider establishes your connection to the internet, you are assigned an identifying number called an IP address. What do you think they would think of IPv6? Also, is that just like on an email header? I guess it's just the last 4 digits of the IP? I'm confused, but it's okay. Osawa couldn't make heads or tails of most of it, but one thing drew his eye. Access point, Shibuya Ward, Tokyo. IPv6 existed in 2008? Oh my god. Kajiwara went into the email's program options and checked the server info for Osawa's connection. Deep furrows formed in his forehead. Yeah, I feel like something's going on. This is the same provider that you use, Mr. Osawa. What does that mean? What kind of internet connection do you have here at your house? What sort? Well, it's plugged in over there, but... Osawa pointed at the router. Oh my god, the router! We thought it was a Wii at one point. Now it's important to the story. And does everyone in your family use that same line? Yes, I think so. Kajiwara opened up a command prompt, then typed ipconfig. A literal prompt for users to issue computer control commands via keyboard instead of mouse, also frequently used to refer to the window or program allowing for such. Okay, so if the same numbers we saw before pop up here, that's a bad sign. Oh? Osawa stared at the monitor. Kajiwara pressed enter and a black window covered in white alphanumeric characters appeared. What the heck? Kajiwara muttered under his breath. Wait, what's going on? Osawa asked. Explain simply so that I can understand. Faking an email address is simple enough, but the typical person wouldn't be able to fake an IP. It's very likely that these emails were sent from another computer inside this house. Wouldn't he just get the local IP addresses from ipconfig? Like, he would get the computer that he's on's real IP address, but can he get other? Just from ipconfig? I haven't used ipconfig in a while. Osawa had to stifle a gasp. Okay, I was like, I thought you only get like the subnet stuff, like the local IP address from ipconfig, and maybe you get the computer you're on. The emails have been sent from his own house at around 11 o'clock that morning. Since Osawa hadn't sent them himself, that left only one possible culprit. I mean, it could have also been Tanaka. He was there, but I is probably the most likely. Suddenly his phone rang, nearly startling him out of his seat. Makino's name showed up on the incoming call display. Osawa quickly picked up. Is there an update on the emergency board meeting? He blurted. Makino's voice was quiet and subdued. I tried pulling whatever strings I could, but to no avail. I'm afraid holding a board meeting today just won't be possible. The phone fell from Osawa's hand. His only possible means of saving Maria was now gone. To be continued. I'm glad we shared that banana and chocolate bar. You know, whatever. It's like police procedural, right? Like the ipconfig's magic, and it'll just do it. Either way, it was probably I. But what would that help us? Alright. Well, Osawa's done. I guess we can see what Minorikawa's fate. What his fate is, without being wrapped up in Osawa's plans. You look tired, sir. Yeah, I guess so. His reply was barely audible. The taxi stopped outside of Heaven Publishing. The trip had taken 10 minutes on the dot. Thanks. Minorikawa left a 1,000 yen bill on the seat and exited the cab. Sir, the driver called out after him. Minorikawa turned back around. Kimazuka was leaning out the window to point at him. It isn't called work because it's fun, sir. The day will be over soon enough. Just hang in there a little bit longer. The driver finished with a knowing grin. Minorikawa cracked the ghost of a smile. Maybe his spirits had been lifted just a tiny little bit. Thank you, he replied. You're a true friend of the working man. He waved half-heartedly, then headed into the building. That's another bromance. There's so much yaoi. Mr. Mino! Chiaki threw herself at him as soon as he opened the door to the editing office. News of the explosion was playing on the television. Minorikawa marched straight to his desk and opened up his laptop. While it booted up, he tried to get a handle on the current situation. Where are the folks from the loan company? He asked. They're here, Chiaki said. I have them waiting downstairs. Do they know Toyama's dead? I'm sorry? I kind of let that slip. What about Hana? I'm not sure. I haven't heard from her since she called earlier. With a tiny sigh, Minorikawa started typing at his laptop. By some miracle, his 6 pages of the copy were nearly wrapped up. Still, he needed to do whatever it took to see this job through to the end. That would serve as his final tribute to Toyama's memory. He loaded his copy into the DTP software in order to set up the layout. Bit by bit, actual magazine articles began to take shape. Then the editing department door swung open. Ah, hey! Snarled the young man who barged in first. He kicked over a stack of books. How long are you gonna keep us waiting, huh? We know he's not someone to fuck with. Apparently he is like a boxer. Honestly, Sagawa, must you be so rowdy? Down to publish. A middle-aged man stepped in alongside him. Are you Mr. Minorikawa then? He added as his eyes fixed on the journalist. He held out his business card. A pleasure to meet you. I'm Asao Ozu from Takarada Financing, a black market lending firm that offers loans at an interest rate above what the law allows, well known for taking whatever steps necessary to collect what's owed. Its business card slogan, got bad credit but you need a loan? Call any time, we'll put together a loan that suits your needs. My deepest sympathies about Mr. Toyama. However, I'm afraid that we need you to give us back the money we loaned. Despite his polite tone, the threat in his voice was plain. Look, next month's issue of 4-Star General Gossip is definitely coming out. Couldn't you please wait for the repayment until we have the funds from those sales? Minorikawa asked. That was exactly what Toyama's plan had been, after all. Plombo, I mean, they got the Yakuza over there. What do you think is the payday lenders over there? Well, we certainly ain't monsters. If the magazine is going to be making you money, we wouldn't mind delaying another month. You really mean it? Chiaki chirped. To clarify, that would be the case if Toyama were still alive. Releasing the next issue is all well and good, but with Toyama gone, so too is the company. That would make full repayment of what we're owed impossible, I expect. Then what do you want us to do? Minorikawa asked coldly. How about we just cut to the chase, growled the younger man, Sagawa. Dig out your ears and listen up. Chiaki recoiled in a panic, and Minorikawa held up an interposing hand. Knock it off, he said. You're scaring the young lady. A thin smile came to Ozu's face. All we want to know is where's Mr. Toyama's daughter at? Yeah, that's right, Sagawa said. Tell us where the girl is. No way, Chiaki squeaked in protest. Hana's just a little kid. She doesn't have any responsibility to pay back the... Ozu didn't let her finish. We're aware of that. Nevertheless, we'd still like to know where she is. The law didn't matter right now. Guys like this had all sorts of ways of wringing money out of people. It was clear from the looks on their faces that Ozu and Sagawa had some wicked scheme up their sleeves. Unless, of course, you would prefer to take on Toyama's debts, Mr. Minorikawa. You are quite the accomplished reporter, after all. Take on his debts, huh? Minorikawa didn't know how much Toyama had borrowed, but it only took one look at these guys to tell him it was no small sum. How about it? Ozu asked. The way you land scoop after scoop, I'm sure you'll be able to repay us in full before you die. Minorikawa fiercely returned his stare. Let's try the bottom option, but I don't think we're gonna get very far with these guys. Can't we just call it even? The two men stiffened. What was that? The older of the two demanded. Can't we just call it even? This time Minorikawa spat the words out sharp and clear. The older fellow furrowed his brow, a vein pulsing visibly at his temple. You want to say that one more time, he growled. Minorikawa cleared his throat. Call it even. Yes. The next thing Minorikawa knew, he'd been headbutted right between the eyes. An instant later, he was slammed bodily down onto the desk. You dumb bastard! He could vaguely hear the middle-aged man's voice ringing inside his head. That's when he lost consciousness. I'm just answering how I think Minorikawa would have answered. Mr. Mino! Someone was calling to him. Mr. Mino, wake up! Chiaki? He forced his eyelids back open. What happened? Here, could you please read this? Chiaki held out a printed draft of her article. How long had you been knocked out? A minute? No, maybe an hour. Are you awake now? Are you awake now, sir? The voice of the middle-aged thug intruded on his dazed mind. Looking around, Minorikawa saw the two men from Takara the Financing still there, casually seated on the sofa. He couldn't have been out for too long then. We'll just wait here until you're inclined to take on his debt. Minorikawa's nose stung painfully. Please, can you read this? Chiaki repeated. It's my copy from the street interviews. I know even if next month's issue gets released, it's not going to fix the debt problem. But still, I mean, I already wrote it and all. Nodding silently, Minorikawa took hold of the copy. She is right, this wasn't going to help with the debt situation. But when a professional took on a job, they saw it through to the end. Minorikawa gave it a quick once-over. He saw immediately that the piece was lacking in structure. He then read the article a second time, checking the finer details. Several off-theme sentences jumped out at him. This is no good, rewrite it. He thrust the printout back at Chiaki. Yes, sir. She bowed her head and retreated to another desk. This is a lot of cigarettes for 1 hour. The TV was still on. A news broadcaster's voice suddenly broke through the silence, as well as Minorikawa's concentration. We're live on the scene now, where an explosion in Shibuya has... Minorikawa gazed blankly at the screen. He found his mind drifting to a particular memory of Toyama. That's a good Minorikawa face. The door looked like it might fall apart at any moment, but Minorikawa didn't care. He pounded on it as hard as he could. The Toyama nameplate popped off and fell to the floor. It was hard to believe this dilapidated apartment was the home of a newspaper editor who'd worked his way up from reporter. Hey, Toyama, get your ass out here. At the sound of Minorikawa's angry shouting, other tenants on the floor poked their heads out of their rooms to stare. He paid them no heed, continuing to call out. Eventually, Toyama opened the door, dressed in his sweats and undershirt. "Quiet down, you moron! Come in," he snapped. "I hear you tendered your letter, the resignation, at the paper." Minorikawa sat cross-legged at the tatami-covered floor. "Tell me why." Toyama quirked a lopsided grin. "You want to know why I quit, huh? Alright, lean in close." Minorikawa peered at him dubiously. "Huh? Why?" "I don't want anyone hearing this." Resigned, Minorikawa leaned forward and turned his right ear towards Toyama. The man's warm breath against his cheek was pretty unsettling. At first, he had trouble concentrating on Toyama's story, but when the older man got to the crux of the matter, he found himself listening with rapt attention. By the time Toyama finished, Minorikawa was unable to suppress his shock. You're starting your own publishing company? Not so loud, damn it." Toyama shushed him with fingers to his lips. He looked around warily as if there might be spies in his own apartment. "Right, but a publishing company?" Minorikawa said again, more quietly this time. "What are you doing for your distributor account?" All booksellers were required to use a wholesale distributor to circulate their publications. To do business with such a distributor, a publisher needed a specialized distributor account. They're not going to let a company with no track record open a new account with a distributor. I'm sure you must realize that. Toyama grinned, a proud gleam in his eyes. I know, that's why I bought one. You bought one? A ghost account belonging to a publisher that went bankrupt. Distributor accounts could go for tens of millions of yen. There was no way Toyama could afford that on his severance pay alone. He must have taken out a loan in order to make the purchase. But the publishing industry was in a slump nowadays. People just weren't buying books much anymore. Starting up a new publishing company was a beyond risky endeavor. And I've already decided on a name for my company, Minorikawa. Toyama's face was positively beaming. I'm accidentally getting the Yakuza's voice in the Toyama voice. Get this. I had a Toyama voice and I don't remember what it was. Get this. Heaven Publishing. Heaven? That sounds fatalistic. The idea is that people who work for me will feel like they're in paradise. For all his kvetching about keeping quiet, Toyama was now exclaiming pretty loudly himself. I mean, I can appreciate your willingness to take the risk, but surely your wife must have had objections, Minorikawa said. Toyama fell silent. He went and opened up the refrigerator. Minorikawa took a peek inside. Its shelves were mournfully spare, holding little besides beer cans and drinking snacks. Mrs. left us. She took our daughter with her. Those scant few words painted the picture clearly enough. Toyama grabbed a can of beer and tossed it to his guest. But no more sob stories, he went on. He briskly cracked open his own can of beer. Weak foam bubbled up from the top. It's an Asahi. Asahi Super Dry. They're actually pretty good. I had one, like last year, I think. Cheers, Minorikawa, to Heaven Publishing's big debut. He'd cast everything aside and was striving for a new beginning. If the man had braced himself for the challenge, it wasn't Minorikawa's place to tell him he was making a mistake. Even if it was an uphill battle, he had little chance of winning. Congrats, Mr. Toyama. Minorikawa pulled the tab on his beer can. Cheers. The two of them clacked their cans together. One year had passed since Toyama founded Heaven Publishing. Minorikawa poked his head into the editing office, a bag from the convenience store in hand. Hey boss, how's business? How does it look like it's going? Toyama sat amidst a veritable mountain of returned stock, his expression bleak. Bookstores do not purchase the books they sell, but rather take them on consignment. This allows them to return to the publisher any books that do not sell. This is true in America. I worked at a bookstore, and every now and then we would have to scan all the books and be like, we're gonna send these back to the publisher. The books were all bulky, non-fiction tomes, not exactly the sort to fly off the shelves. The man couldn't even muster a smile for their reunion. It's been like this for every non-fiction book we've put out. Wow, starting right off with the bleak stuff, huh? 'Cause things are bleak. The only thing that's selling is this gossip rag of ours. Minorikawa pulled some beer cans from his bag, handing one to Toyama. Toyama lifted an issue of 4-Star General Gossip from atop his desk. It was Heaven Publishing's one breadwinner, the only thing keeping the company afloat. But the gossip now seemed like it was buried in the red of the publisher's non-fiction releases. I really had higher aspirations than this, Toyama sighed, gazing in disappointment at the piles of unsold books. But here we are, with our gossip magazine as our only viable publication. The beleaguered bookseller chugged his beer. Daddy, I'm hungry. Minorikawa was startled to hear a young child's voice. He turned around to see a little girl nestled between the stacks of returned stock. Look at those CRT monitors! I want them! That's my daughter, Hana, Toyama said. It's complicated, but she's living with me now. I see. Minorikawa couldn't press for more details with Hana right there. In all likelihood, things with Toyama's ex-wife hadn't been going well. Go on, introduce yourself, Toyama said. This is one of Daddy's work friends. Hana turned to Minorikawa with a bright little grin. Hello, my name's Hana. I'm 6. You want some of this? Oh, you want some of this? Minorikawa held out a packet of dried squid he'd bought to go with the beers. Sure. Hana greedily stuffed her cheeks with the squid. Toyama flashed a sheepish grin. Do you like living with your daddy, Hana? Minorikawa asked. I don't know if we had an age for Hana. 10 seems like 8 or 10 seems good for based on how she's been acting, I guess. Giving the girl's hair a gentle ruffle. Uh-huh, I do. My daddy's amazing. He runs a company. Toyama let out a tiny involuntary sob at his daughter's ready praise. I'll keep at it, Toyama said, looking into his daughter's smiling face. Hana is more important to me than any high aspirations I might have had. I'll keep shoveling out copies of the gossip. And at least make sure she's always got something good to eat. Daddy, this is really tasty. Hana held up the pouch of dried squid. Tears welled in Toyama's eyes. Next time I'll make sure she has some sashimi instead of something like this. Hey, what do you mean something like this? Minorikawa grumbled. I'm the one who bought it. Toyama and his daughter laughed together. It was a heartwarming sight. Minorikawa thought, a father and his girl getting along so well. Toyama might have been a hard-hitting journalist. When he came home at the end of the day, he was just a daddy. It was only natural for the man, as a father, to put his child above anything else. After gorging herself on snacks, Hana fell asleep on the sofa, looking well and truly satisfied. You know, Minorikawa, Hana's happiness means more to me than my lofty artistic ideals ever could. Toyama kept his voice low as he regarded his daughter's sleeping face. And from that day forward, Heaven Publishing had shifted its focus to scandal rags, with 4-Star General Gossip as its pillar. Had that been for good or for ill? Whatever the case, Toyama had abandoned his pride. Minorikawa had watched him become more and more of a miserable wretch. Minorikawa snapped back into the present as a sheaf of papers appeared in front of his face. Here you go, Chiaki said, radiating anxiety. Right. Minorikawa gave her copy a close read-over, then thrust it back out to her. What did you even fix? He asked. Could you please tell me what parts were wrong? She mumbled, hanging her head. What are you talking about? It's just, well, we don't have a lot of time here, so I figured I'd just fix the parts that need fixing. Chiaki trailed off into an indistinct mutter. Is that always how you go about fixing your copy? Yes? Then you're never gonna get any better. If someone tells you it's no good, you rewrite the whole thing from scratch. Just making fiddly tweaks here and there is what an amateur does. Chiaki dipped her head even deeper, cringing at the reprimand. Minorikawa let out a tiny sigh. Look, what I just told you, that's what Toyama told me when I was first starting out. There were times he'd have me do dozens of rewrites. At first I thought he was just pushing me around, but after rewriting things over and over, I realized something. There are a whole lot of ways you can write about the same thing. And that's what helped me hone my skills as a writer. Chiaki raised her head back up. Oh wow, really? If you can get that, then stick with it. Ride your submission deadline as close as you have to in order to write the best piece you can. Okay, I can do it. I will do it. Finally, Chiaki's face brightened with a smile. That's the spirit. The woman might have talent, but she hadn't realized it yet. She needed to be able to stick to an assignment, even when things got tough. If she didn't have that kind of resolve, she'd never make it as a freelancer. Oh, how touching, Ozus chimed in, applauding. I'm almost moved to tears. They'll make a movie of this for sure. See, we had only been acquainted with that sad sap Toyama. We never knew there was such an upstanding fellow here who was so good at tough love. Minorikawa shot to his feet and pounded his fist on the desk. That's about enough from the peanut gallery. Hold your tongue, Sagawa snarled. His eyes shone with a vicious gleam. We're getting sick of waiting here. Sagawa, you really are a short-tempered guy, aren't you? Ozu clucked disapprovingly at his underling, then slid a sheet of paper onto Minorikawa's desk. Nevertheless, I'm afraid we do require a decision now. If you have the stamp here, we'll be on our way. Chiaki stared down at the document. Is this a bond of reconnaissance? Reconnaissance? I can read. Yeah, that's right. That's what you write when transferring the debt. Sagawa puffed himself up proudly. Minorikawa silently looked over the contract. If you don't have a stamp, we'll gladly accept the signature as well, Ozu pointed out. Face it, pal, Sagawa added. If you don't hurry up inside, we're never gonna stop going after Toyama's daughter. Minorikawa snatched up a pen. Mr. Mino, you can't do this. Think about what you're doing, Chiaki shouted. If you go through with this, you'll just wind up like Mr. Toyama. I won't. Yes, you will. Just who the hell do you think I am? I'm Minoru Minorikawa, damn it. I'm gonna land so many scoops it'll make your head spin. And I'm gonna pay back this debt and rebuild Heaven Publishing. But why would you take such a risk? Chiaki sobbed. Minorikawa lowered his voice. Because I owe him so much. I can't stand by and let these scumbags kill his daughter. Ah! Before Minorikawa could sign, Sagawa startled him with a sudden exclamation. Looking up, Minorikawa saw what the loan sharks had seen. Little Hana standing by the door. Ooh, more CRTs. Get her! On it, boss! Ozu and Sagawa rushed at the girl. Run! Minorikawa shouted. Hana bolted right back out the door, but Ozu managed to snatch her up just as she reached the stairs. Let's be on our way, shall we? A vile grin came to Ozu's cruel face as he headed down the stairwell. Stop it! Let her go! Minorikawa rushed after them, trying to grab the girl, but Sagawa drove a punch right into his face. Damn, if only Miki was here. Ugh. The pain staggered him. Nevertheless, he managed to press on. Get your hands off that girl. Oh, 2 boots. Shut your damn mouth. Something hard slammed into his chest. His vision went dark. He felt himself slipping from consciousness. Just before he blacked out, he heard Hana's voice. I'm sorry, Uncle Minorikawa. Sorry? No, I'm the one who should apologize. But before his thoughts got any further, Minorikawa passed out. Minorikawa is dead. Hana gets caught. Hana showed up at the office, only to get caught by the moneylenders, and Sagawa drop-kicked Minorikawa into unconsciousness when he tried to save her. It turns out Hana had been at the police station just before this, trying to decide if she should tell the police her father had been killed in the explosion. Then someone brought her to Heaven Publishing, which was clearly a mistake. Who could have done that? Not me. It was Kano. God damn it, Kano. How could you let this happen? To recap Kano's story, his partner died. Him and Stanley left admirably. Like, disbanded admirably. And now he's going back to try to solve this himself. Arriving back at the Shibuya precinct, Kano hurried to the interrogation room. With the investigation currently on hold, he knew that taking any official action would be tricky. If he was going to break through this stalemate, he was going to need Tatsuno's help. The abduction, the ransom, the attaché case relay, Maria's release, and then Tanaka's death. Maybe Tatsuno would be able to figure out how all these elements were related. But first, Kano needed to check something for himself. Tatsuno would have never let El Carawan go free. Kano needed the prisoner to set the record straight. Al Carawan sat in the precinct interrogation room, looking brazen and cocksure. One glance at his face, and Kano was reminded of what had happened to Sasayama. His fresh anger smoldered at the edges of his mind. There were 2 detectives already in the room. It seems he wasn't made privy to the details, one of them told Kano. Sounds like they were following orders, carrying the attaché case around, the other added. Kano sat down from Al Carawan. There's something I'd like to ask you, he said. We were just paid to do a job. I don't know anything more than that. His Japanese was imperfect, but he understood the language well enough. Tell me, how did you manage to escape from Detective Tatsuno? Escape? I didn't. A faint smile came to Al Carawan's lips. He let me go free. Liar. Detective Tatsuno would never do that. Kano slammed his desk with his fist. I didn't have handcuffs on, did I? He took them off for me. This had to be a lie. It's not like there weren't any other ways to remove a pair of handcuffs. After he took off the handcuffs, El Carawan continued, he pointed his gun at me. Cut the crap. Kano grabbed the prisoner by the collar. But Al Carawan went on, unperturbed. He kept the gun pointed at me, but he didn't pull the trigger. So that's when I ran. Why would Detective Tatsuno want to shoot you? Because I saw him. Saw him? Saw him do what? Let me tell you something interesting, El Carawan said sardonically. It was that girl who was carrying the ransom, right? Kano pictured Hitomi standing anxiously beside the statue of Hachiko. That guy Tatano was trying to kill her. In a fit of rage, Kano drove his fist into Al Karawan's face. His colleagues rushed to interpose themselves. Kano, calm down. Knocked to the floor, Al Karawan gingerly fingered his split lip. After I gave you such good info, too, he grumbled. Detective Tatano was designed to protect Hitomi Osawa, Kano shouted. You can't expect me to believe her rubbish. He lunged around the table, ready to throw another punch, but his fellow detectives held him back. Al Karawan looked away indifferently. It's your Detective Tatano you should be arresting, not me. That girl's gonna get killed. You need to step in line, pal, Kano bellowed. Kano, his colleagues shouted. You're the one who needs to step in line. Go and cool off for a bit. Expelled from the interrogation room, Kano immediately pulled out his cell phone and called Tatano's number. Please pick up. He clutched his phone tight, pleading under his breath. But Tatano didn't answer. Kano sat down in a chair in the hallway, in a bit of a daze. He found himself holding the present Sasayama had gotten for his wife. I have to do something. I just don't know what I'm supposed to do. His restlessness gnawed at him like a rabid animal. Hey, Kano. He looked up to see Kuze standing beside him, his expression grave. I have an update on Sasayama, the director began. Kano swallowed the lump in his throat. It seems the knife went in deep enough to do some organ damage. He's in critical condition. I see. Kano bit his lip hard. His handkerchief, red with Sasayama's blood, clung to the wrapping paper of Sasayama's present. Kano peeled it away carefully, so as not to tear the paper beneath. What's that? Asked Kuze. Sasayama had me hold onto this for him. It's a present for his wife. Ah, I see. I'm sorry, Detective Kuze, for ignoring your orders. Director Kuze. I'm so bad tonight. Kano's eyes remained fixed on the gift as he spoke. When you get down to it, none of this would have happened if it wasn't for me. Some kind of punishment was surely headed his way for acting alone as he had. He probably wasn't getting out of this with a simple written apology. When public servants are negligent in their duties or violate regulations, they could be punished with a warning, a formal reprimand, reduction in pay, suspension, or dismissal. In the case of a warning, in addition to the remonstration from a direct supervisor, the individual must also submit a formal letter explaining the relevant details and ensuring that it won't happen again. Okuze calmly shook his head. What happened to Sasayama isn't your fault. Don't blame yourself, he said. As far as this case goes, I've been given quite the runaround myself. There was a rare note of vulnerability in Kuze's voice. The higher-ups have barely let any information trickle my way, but they're still ordering me around non-stop. It's a real pain in the ass. Kuze fell silent, ruminating. The quiet lingered between the two men for several moments before he abruptly spoke again. Oh, right. I'd like to get your opinion on something. It's so beautiful, right? It was a beautiful shot. So Mamoru Tanaka, who we found in the minivan, you know? What you think? Should we ought to maybe release his name to the media? Kuze had slipped into his childish register. He was clearly exhausted. After dealing with the kidnappers' baffling actions and too much meddling from the higher-ups, even a veteran like Kuze is just beat. But that's not the only reason for his exhaustion. Kuze has a brother, 6 years his senior, who despite being nominally mature, refuses to get a real job and shows no inclination to settle down with a family. He walks around town day after day, dressed like a hippie, and treating passerbys to songs he's written. Kuze has been worrying about his shiftless brother for years now. The guy's become a chronic source of consternation. I love this, like, lore dump about Kuze's brother. I'm gonna take a drink of water because Kuze's voice hurts me. Kano was thrown by the question. It was a rare thing for the director to seek an opinion from a mere junior detective. It feels like there's something not too normal about one of Kenji Osawa's subordinates dying, Kuze went on. Kano had had the same thought. This felt too intentional to be a coincidence. So here's the question. Should I get the media involved and try to rush for a resolution? Or should I be more cautious? What would you do? About releasing the name? Kano asked. This wasn't such a simple thing to answer. There were so many factors to consider. A tired smile came to Kuze's face. Don't think about it too hard. This is just so I have a point of reference. Tell me what your gut says. What does my gut say? What does Kano's gut say? What would releasing a name accomplish? I who is Osawa's wife, who we believe is cheating on Osawa with Tanaka, already knows that Tanaka's dead. What would this accomplish? Oh, you know what this would accomplish? I think Toyama thinks, I think Minorikawa thinks that Toyama died in that explosion, right? Because that's what Chiaki, I think Chiaki assumed, and then Minorikawa was told that information. So releasing the name would absolve, or would maybe give Minorikawa a second thought about Toyama. Maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna release it. I can't think of any other reason why. I think releasing the name should be alright. There was still a lot they didn't know about Tanaka. The fact that the final stop for the ransom relay was Tanaka's condo implied some sort of connection between him and the kidnappers. But they still had no idea what his role in the abduction might have been. They also didn't have any motive for why Tanaka would be helping the kidnappers in the first place. By sharing some of what they did know with the public, they might be able to garner some new leads. You'd release the name? Alright then. Without another word, Kuze headed back towards the conference room. On the TV, the governor's press conference was still going on. I've just requested that each of the railroad companies, starting with JR, stop running trains through Shibuya Station until further notice. As far as the roads go, Route 246 has already been closed to traffic. The executive looked pale as he spoke to the crowd. Is there any possibility of a bioterrorist attack? What about the people who are still in Shibuya? The reporters unleashed a barrage of questions. The governor's face scrunched up. As I've already made clear, this is not a complete blockade. Because modern Japan does not have a system for enacting martial law, there are a few ways that the government could effectively quarantine Shibuya. In the case of a potential viral infection, the infectious disease law allows for the city to be partitioned into areas of restricted movement. If the authorities do not want to acknowledge the existence of the top-secret UA virus, however, taking such an action would be rather tricky legally. There's nothing to stop anyone from leaving Shibuya on foot. Isn't what you're describing the de facto martial law? Spat one reporter. Of course not, the governor snapped. You should be well aware that martial law is illegal. I couldn't declare it, or that's him talking. You should be well aware that martial law is illegal. I couldn't declare it even if I wanted to. If you wanted to? So this is a bioterrorist issue then? I never said anything of the sort. The press conference was devolving into chaos. Kano was unsurprised given the circumstances. Still, everyone was doing their best insofar as they knew how. So why not me, Kano thought. It doesn't matter what I do. I just want to be doing something. Just letting time tick by without trying to take action was more than he could bear. Kano. Maybe if we talk to Rumi, maybe he'll talk to Rumi's dad, and maybe he'll be like a voice of reason. Began to worry about Rumi and decided to give her a call. The phone rang several times before it went to voicemail. The fact that she hadn't picked up made Kano all the more anxious. Well, we fucked up. He was still staring at his phone when he got a call of his own. When he peered at the incoming call display, his heart nearly stopped. There was Tatsuno's name. Kano quickly pressed the button to accept the call. Oh, maybe it's good we didn't make a phone call, because maybe we wouldn't take this one. Detective Tatsuno? Detective Tatsuno, is that you? There was a whole mountain of things Kano wanted to ask. Just what had Tatsuno been doing this whole time? Why had he let Al-Karawan go free? And what had happened to Hitomi? But while he was trying to decide what question to pose first, Tatsuno spoke. I've secured Maria Osawa. What? The word came out as a startled gasp. Detective Tatsuno, you have to bring her here ASAP. Right now she's... Tatsuno cut him off. You need to bring Hitomi Osawa to my location at once. Hitomi? Osawa? Yes. I heard over the wireless that the man from the US Embassy had her in custody. Kano hadn't been listening to the most recent wireless traffic. Apparently Stanley had managed to find Hitomi. But what was Tatsuno getting at here? Wait, hold on. What for? I mean, why do you need me to bring Hitomi Osawa to you? There was no reply. Detective Tatsuno, answer me. Please. Tatsuno replied as if he hadn't heard Kano's questions. There's an office building in the Nanpei-dai called South Hill. I'll be waiting for you on the rooftop. If you don't bring her, I'll kill Maria. With that grisly warning, he hung up. Kano's hand went limp. His phone slipped from his grasp and fell to the floor. I like how early on we called that the assassin was a detective just based on his gun. And then as we learned that he was supposed to be in charge of Hitomi, it just, cemented that it was the detective Tatsuno. Kano went to South Hill and Nanpei-dai alone. The building takes its name from a rough translation of Nanpei-dai, the name of the area where it is located. The official name is South Hill Building, but since this is awkward to say, it is frequently shortened. He hadn't brought Hitomi as Tatsuno had demanded, nor had he reported the situation to Kuze. First, he wanted to meet with Tatsuno and find out what was going on. He took the elevator to the 8th floor. After that, he had to take the stairs to the rooftop. As he made his way up the stairs, he tried to imagine what Tatsuno might want with Hitomi. He hadn't noticed anything suspicious about the senior detective in the lead-up to the stakeout at the Scramble. Tatsuno had seemed like the same man Kano had always revered. So why was he doing this? Kano couldn't think of a reason. Reaching to the top of the staircase, he at last stepped out onto the rooftop. The time for half-baked conjecture was past. Kano would lay his doubts at Tatsuno's feet. Then, soon enough, everything would become clear. Inwardly, Kano did his best to convince himself of that. A warm breeze blew against his cheek. He took a look around, but saw no sign of Tatsuno. "Detective Tatsuno, where are you?" Getting no response, he began to walk around the rooftop, calling out several more times. "It's Kano, I've come as you asked." "Where's Hitomi Osawa?" Kano rolled around when he heard the voice behind him. Tatsuno stepped into view from behind the water tank. He led with him a young woman, bound and blindfolded. "Why didn't you bring her?" he growled. Kano stared in shock. "Detective Tatsuno, why are you doing this? Is that really Maria?" We have our jump point for Maria, but I'm gonna hold off. I want to see how this plays out. Tatsuno responded by removing the young woman's blindfold. There was no doubt about it. She looked very much like Hitomi Osawa. A surge of frustration rushed through Kano. "Detective Tatsuno, what is the meaning of this?" Kano fought to remain calm. He felt like he was on the verge of falling to pieces. "Bring me Hitomi Osawa and I'll let this girl go." "Why? What do you need Hitomi for?" But Tatsuno's only answer was an icy stare. "This isn't like you. It's so weird. The Detective Tatsuno who I know." "Who you know?" Tatsuno cut him off. "What do you know about me?" "I know what sort of detective you are, sir, because I've modeled myself after you for my whole career." The older man's expression remained stony. "Don't you remember?" Kano went on. "That time when you risked your life to talk down that man who barricaded himself inside that office? Ever since then, you've been my..." Tatsuno interrupted him with a sudden burst of laughter. "You really are gullible, you know that. You can only see things the way you want to see them." "What do you mean by that?" "The truth is, I didn't even care if I died doing what I did. That's why I doused myself in gasoline." Tatsuno's voice had gone low and quiet. "That was no display of heroics. It was more attempted suicide than anything else. I wasn't thinking about the other people still inside the building. It's just a coincidence things turned out the way they did." "So then, if you'd made a single misstep, then everyone in that building might well have burned to death." "You're lying! That can't be true!" Oh, he had an awful shot of Kano here. Kano shook his head insistently. "I don't have time for this conversation." Tatsuno pressed the barrel of his gun to Maria's head. "If you don't bring Hitomi Osawa to me, believe me, I'll blow her brains out." "Please stop this," Kano shouted. But there was no hesitation in Tatsuno's eyes. He looked like he really would shoot Maria if Kano didn't do as he asked. "Hurry up, bring Hitomi to me." "Can't you at least tell me what's going on?" "Go now, or so help me I'll shoot." Kano drew his own gun from his jacket. "I know you, Detective Tatsuno. I know there's some meaning behind all this." Kano's words came out as imploring croak. "You think you can shoot me?" Tatsuno spat. "Letting out Karawan go free? Taking Maria hostage? This has to mean something." Sweat made Kano's hand slick where he clutched his gun. "I asked if you think you could shoot me. I've always looked up to you. You were the sort of detective I wanted to become." Kano's view of Tatsuno began to blur as tears welled in his eyes. "Can you shoot me, Kano?" "I can." Even as he cried, Kano stood resolutely, doing his best to stare down the older man. He set his finger squarely on the trigger and pointed his gun at Tatsuno's forehead. Suddenly, the piercing stare vanished from the other detective's eyes. I've got to give you full marks for that, Kano. Tatsuno smiled thinly. I'll tell you then. I'll tell you why I'm doing this. It all happened 17 years ago. A meth addict had assaulted someone in Shibuya. Tatsuno was questioning people around Dogenzaka in search of the perp. He happened to pass by Endo Electronics. Oh, hey, Tatsuno. Oh. It was Kotane Endo, clad in pristine white. Clutched to her breast was her daughter Suzune, only a few months old. It's been a long time, Kotane said. She flashed a tiny smile. Yes, it has, Tatsuno replied with a clumsy smile of his own. Are you on the job? Yes, I am. Kotane recoiled slightly at the dour look on Tatsuno's face. Is something the matter? There was an armed criminal hiding out somewhere in the area. What? I wouldn't leave the shop for a while if you can avoid it. But I have to go to the bank to deposit some money. Surely you can have Daisuke go do it. He's away on a repair job and hasn't come back yet. Tatsuno let out a one-note sigh. I see Daisuke still does things his own way. Alright, let me escort you to the bank. You mean it? I feel a lot safer with you, having you with me. Kotane flashed him a smile so wide that Tatsuno thought he might lose himself in it. Tatsuno, Kotane, and Daisuke were childhood friends, and had gone to school together. Up through high school. Tatsuno and Daisuke were always clowning around together. And Kotane was always there alongside them, laughing. It had been quite some time since he'd gotten to walk along Dogenzaka with Kotane. How have you been lately? How have you been lately? Well, with a new newborn to look after, it's been pretty hectic. But there's never a dull moment. Things have been good. I'm glad to hear it. Kotane was always as bright as a sunflower. Sometimes Tatsuno managed to convince himself that just the sight of her was enough. Outside the bank, Kotane held Suzune out to him. Tatsuno received the baby with an anxious frown. What's with the face? I'm not good with babies. I haven't held one very often. Oh, you'll be fine, don't worry. Just hold on to her for a minute while I take care of things inside. Alright. He held the baby gingerly, like it was a bomb that might explode at any moment. Kotane chuckled softly. Suzune stirred and squirmed in Tatsuno's arms. She kinda has Kotane's eyes, he thought. It was strange, the sensation of holding a child. She was so soft and light, and yet such a real and responsive presence. The faint warmth of her body warmed to Tatsuno inwardly in turn. When Kotane returned after making her deposit, they strolled to a nearby park, Suzune back in her mother's arms. Do you have any plans for marriage, Tatsuno? I haven't thought about it. Work has me pretty busy. Oh, that's just an excuse, Kotane said. If there really were some woman you wanted to marry, you wouldn't let work stop you. Then I suppose it's because there hasn't been anyone I've felt that way about. Really? Nobody this whole time? Yeah, really. I see. But still, seeing the two of you like this, it makes me realize how nice having a family could be. Tatsuno peered deeply into Suzune's face. Well, if it ain't Tatsuno. He looked up as a cheery voice cut into the conversation. It was Daisuke. What are you doing here? He asked his wife. I could ask you the same question. Come on, give me a break. I've come to make the deposit for the client. In that case, no need to worry. I just took care of it myself. I thought you'd forgotten about it. Really? Kotone smiled as Daisuke reached down and carefully lifted Suzune in his arms. Beaming happily at his daughter, he nuzzled up against her tiny cheek. Daisuke, long time no see. Yeah, glad you're doing well for yourself, Tatsuno. They walked side by side. Daisuke proudly showed off Suzune's drowsing face. What do you think? Adorable, isn't she? Yeah, luckily she doesn't have your looks. Hey now. Bad-mouthing me the same as ever, huh? Some things hadn't changed since high school. Why not drop by our place for a bit? Daisuke offered. Sorry, I'm in the middle of a job, actually. Tatsuno turned to glance at Kotone. Oh. An instant later, Daisuke screamed, Kotone! A man had come up behind his wife and now held a kitchen knife to her throat. That was all very sudden. Kotone stood stiffly, frozen in terror. Let her go. Tatsuno took a step toward the man. The slightly upturned eyes, the close-cropped hair, the thin mustache, all the details matched the description. This had to be the man Tatsuno was after. Shut your damn mouth! You want to try and kill me, huh? This lady here wants to try and kill me. The man was babbling nonsense. The reports had said the suspect was a tweaker. Right now his mind was probably a complete mess from meth withdrawal. Left unchecked, there was no telling what he might do. Tatsuno shoved Daisuke behind him and drew his gun from his jacket. Wait, don't shoot! You'll hit Kotone! But Tatsuno ignored Daisuke's shouts and trained his gun on the perp's shoulder. He was confident in his marksmanship. He never missed at this range. Tatsuno, please back down! Daisuke pleaded. Suzune still clutched in his arms. I beg you! I can't, Tatsune hissed under his breath. This isn't someone we can reason with. The assailant began waving his knife about. He could stab it into Kotone at any moment. Tatsuno had to take the shot now. He aimed for the shoulder of the arm the man held his knife in. Tatsune, stop! Daisuke shouted. Don't do this! For a brief moment, Tatsuno's eyes met Kotone's. He thought he saw her give a tiny nod. Don't shoot! FMV? Is she okay? That's the face someone makes when their friend just got killed. It was all over in an instant. By the time Tatsuno had the perp subdued, Kotone's white shirt was soaked through with red. Yeah, second knife. He probably should have kept his gun trained on him. With Kotone's death, so too died Tatsuno's heart. Whatever feelings had lived inside him had been reduced to cinders, leaving only a never-ending need to atone. Countless times he thought of ending his life in order to make things up to Daisuke and his children. The only reason he didn't go through with it was that he knew death would be the easy way out, and so he stayed on as a detective. He would carry the weight of his sins with him as long as he lived. This really explains why Achi doesn't recognize Tatsuno. It is probably because Tatsuno refuses to, like, show his face around Daisuke. This was the sentence Tatsuno gave himself. 15 years had passed since Kotane's death. For the first time, Tatsuno had gone to visit her grave. He was standing by the grave marker with his hands clasped when someone called out to him from behind. Excuse me. A slender young girl stood there, flowers in hand. Tatsuno instantly recognized her, Suzune. She looked just like Kotane had back in her high school days. Did you know my mother? She asked. Yes. We were classmates a long time ago. Oh, really? Thank you so much for coming. Suzune gave a slight bow, then gazed up at Tatsuno with her big bright eyes. You look just like her. Tatsuno struggled to hold back the tears. He felt as if Kotane stood before him, returned to life. My father tells me the same thing all the time. I'm sure once you're all grown up, you'll be just as beautiful as she was. A forlorn smile came to Suzune's face. Once I'm grown up? Well, I don't think that's gonna happen. I guess I really do have a lot in common with my mother, including the part where I'm going to die young. That's a normal thing to say to someone you don't even know. Don't be ridiculous, Tatsuno exclaimed. Why would you say such a horrible thing? Suzune took a step backward, looking shocked to be rebuked by a stranger. My apologies, he said hurriedly. I didn't mean to startle you. No, it's alright, Suzune murmured, clutching the flowers close. Honestly, it's not something I like to talk about myself. But I'm sick, so there's not really anything I can do to change it. Sick? I have a heart condition. A generic expression for illness pertaining to the heart, also referred to as heart disease, including things like heart failure, valvular heart disease, and so forth. A transplant is the only thing that can save me, but my blood type is a little bit weird, and it doesn't look like they'll be able to find me a compatible donor. The immune system exists to get rid of foreign substances in the body. Often a patient's immune system will attack a transplanted organ, which can result in the organ failing or functioning properly. To mitigate the risk of rejection, it is preferable for the donor and the recipient to have matching body tissue. In the case of a heart transplant, characteristics such as blood type and pre-sensitized antibodies, human leukocyte antigens, must be screened ahead of time. Then, bowing her head, Suzune stepped in front of the gravestone and clasped her hands in silence. Tatsuno felt a retching pain inside him, as if Kotane were being taken from him all over again. If there really was a god, why would he do such dreadful things? Is there nothing I can do? He nearly lamented aloud. I'll do anything. Suzune, I'll do whatever I have to in order to save you. Tatsuno clutched his fists as he stared at the grave. Tell me, Kotane. What can I possibly do for your daughter? Please tell me. Please. And so the months rolled on. Everything changed just after 10 o'clock that morning. Tatsuno was on the stakeout when his cell phone rang. He glanced at the call display and saw Daisuke Endo's name. He hadn't heard from Daisuke in years now. Fearing that something had happened to Suzune, Tatsuno answered the call despite his current tense circumstances. At once he heard Daisuke wailing. Suzune had a seizure. She might not come back from this one. Tatsuno's terrible suspicions had been right on the mark. He felt himself growing weak. Please, Daisuke exclaimed. You need to shoot that girl you're with. That Hitomi Osawa. You need to shoot her in the head. If we have her heart, we can save Suzune. How does he know that Hitomi has the special blood type. At first, Tatsuno couldn't make sense of what Daisuke was saying. Hurry up and shoot. Shoot her, please. Hitomi Osawa has the Bombay blood type. Wait, hold on, Tatsuno said, keeping his voice low. You want me to kill Hitomi Osawa? Why? He quickly scanned the area. Daisuke, are you nearby? Wait, where are you? Don't worry about that. If you could just render her brain dead, we'll be able to transplant her heart into Suzune. The term brain dead refers to a state where the entire brain, including the brainstem, is beyond any recovery. In Japan, brain death is defined by Article 6 of the Act on Organ Transplantation, which states that brain death can only be declared with the goal of authorizing a transplant and is subject to the judgment of at least 2 doctors inspecting the patient according to a preset process at least 6 hours apart. Shooting someone in the head didn't necessarily guarantee they'd wind up brain dead, and even assuming it did, if Tatsuno shot the Osawa girl here in the middle of the scramble, it would cause a giant incident. By the time the autopsy was completed, the window for a heart transplant would surely have passed. Tatsuno, shoot her, please! Daisuke, I can't. You know I can't do that. Hurry! It was like his old friend wasn't even listening to him. Look, even if she did wind up brain dead, they wouldn't be able to perform a transplant. But Daisuke kept on shouting, It's fine, it'll be fine. I'll make the transplant work somehow. You'll make it work? Even knowing how ridiculous that was, part of Tatsuno wanted to know what he had in mind, if anything. I finally found it. I found someone we can do... What? I finally found it. I found something we can do for Suzune. I misread the something. Something we could do for Suzune. Please help me help her. Tatsuno understood Daisuke's feelings painfully well. To be helpless to stop the suffering of someone you loved? Nothing in the world hurt as much as that. I wanted to save Suzune. Tatsuno, this is the one thing I will ever ask of you. Tatsuno could hear choked weeping from the other end of the line. And at that sound, something inside him shifted. Yes. Yes, Daisuke was right. The likelihood of a transplant happening wasn't the issue. What mattered was that right now, he could take action. He could do something for Suzune. He mustered up his resolve, feeling the doubt lift from his heart. For Suzune. For the daughter of the woman he'd love. Tatsuno checked the gun, tucked inside his jacket. Then slowly began making his way through the crowd toward Hitomi. Now you know why we're here. Tatsuno gestured subtly with his gun, its barrel still pressed against Maria's temple. Kano's own gun wavered in his hands. He was crying inside. There was nothing else he wanted to hear from Tatsuno now. And now he was sure of one thing. Words were never going to stop this man. Kano, Tatsuno said. At my age, I've seen all sorts of young detectives come and go. He fixed his lonesome gaze on Kano. And you're about the worst of the lot. Whenever it's time to take action, you immediately do something reckless. Do you know how many formal apologies I've had to write because of you? Tatsuno let out a heavy sigh. But you know, Kano, because of the way you've looked up to me, you've saved me. And that's the truth. He sounded like a man speaking his last words. Now come on, see if you can stop me. He pressed the gun harder against Maria's temple. Kano took aim at his former hero's head. Detective Tatsuno! His finger wavered on the trigger. Shoot him. You have to shoot him. If you don't shoot him, Maria is going to die. He tried desperately to convince himself. I am going to stop you. Tatsuno looked him coldly in the eye. Oh, I guess Kano spoke first. I am going to stop you. Do it, then. Shoot me. Kano stared right back. He tied his finger on the trigger. Rawr! Holy shit. So we correctly deduced that Tatsuno was Daisuke Achi and the wife to be's friend, and I guess that's the blood type. Well, we don't know if he shot him or if he like did a point break and shot the air or whatever, you know? Ooh, that was a heavy one. Give me 1 sec. I'm gonna mute myself and just fix up the mic a bit. The pop filter had started to drag for some reason. I'm gonna take a drink of water. Oh, okay. Let's see what happened. What is Maria thinking through all this, I guess? I'm really glad I didn't jump. That was crazy. I hear a faint voice and realize that the man is listening to a wireless radio. I've managed to secure Hitomi Osawa at Shibuya Central Hospital, the voice says. A gleam comes to the gunman's eyes. He pulls his cell phone from his jacket and hurriedly makes the call. I've secured Maria Osawa, he says to whoever's on the other end. Huh? Maria Osawa? Is my name Maria Osawa? You need to bring Hitomi Osawa to my location at once. Hitomi Osawa. If I'm Maria Osawa, what sort of relationship do I have to Hitomi? If you don't bring her, I'll kill Maria. Then my captor hangs up. Were you serious just now? My voice wavers uncontrollably. What do you mean you'll kill me? Don't look at me like that. He steps in closer to me, his expression dangerous. That killer's edge that he'd lost during our little talk is back in full force. Just bear with me a little longer. He blindfolds my eyes with some sort of towel. I can't see through it at all. Just then, I hear Kanan's voice inside my head. My memories are like shards of broken glass, tumbling through my mind, all out of sequence. There's her teaching Kanan about Cat's Cradle. How are you able to do that when the string is so tangled up? Oh, once you know the trick to it, you can do it with your eyes closed. I'm showing Kanan how to do a cat's cradle. She reaches out for the string. Huh? She doesn't get hold of it quite right. What gives? Despite her efforts, the string gets all jumbled up. No, not like that, I say. Hook your index fingers through the front part of the string. No, I get that. Kanan's getting irritated. But after giving it a few more tries, she finally manages to pull it off. There we go, she says. Look at that. Seeing her innocent little smile bolsters my own spirits. That's neat. Thanks for teaching me. Oh, it's nothing special. Here, as a thanks. Let me teach you some skills to help protect yourself. Abruptly, my memory jumps forward a bit. Kanan had been training me in some form of self-defense. Techniques for protecting oneself when attacked. Rather than defeating the opponent, self-defense training generally prioritizes simply getting oneself away from danger. Some people consider behavioral tenets, such as run away when you're attacked, or don't go near dangerous places, to be forms of self-defense as well. Don't overthink it, she says. People will either try to punch you, kick you, or grab you. If you can stay ready for those three things, you'll be able to take it from there. She demonstrates some defensive movements as I watch. I follow suit, doing my best to mimic her. Okay, let's do this. Kanan throws a punch at me. I dodge, grab her by the wrist, and give her arm a hard twist. Incredibly, she goes whirling through the air. She lands nimbly on her feet, a little grin coming to her face. Nicely done, she says. I stare down at my own hand. Did I really just do that? Once you repeat the movements enough, your body will treat them like second nature. I do as she says, trying to repeat the movements over and over. At first it feels like a silly gimmick, but eventually I can feel the motions growing smoother. There you go. People like those thugs we met before won't get the drop on you again. Thugs? Now my memory zips further back into the past. I was wandering the streets trying to get back to my hotel, but I had gotten lost. By the time I realized I'd wandered into some dodgy back streets, I was already surrounded by people giving me threatening looks. They must have been thugs looking for tourists to rob. If they had caught me, I'm not sure I would have made it out alive. But they hadn't. Kanan had seen to that. Thank you so much for what you did for me. I didn't want there to be a scene here. Kanan says bluntly as she surveys the aftermath of the Doug's attack. That's all. It happened to be right underneath her apartment window when I was nearly abducted. Bit by bit, my memories of Kanan are starting to resurface. Just a little more. Just a little more, and I'll have myself back. I'm sure of it. Detective Tatano, where are you? Oh, that's Kano. Detective Tatano, where are you? A man's voice suddenly snaps me back into the moment. It's Kano, I've come as you asked. The gunman grabs me by the arm and yanks me to my feet. Where's Hitomi Hisawa? He snarls. Why didn't you bring her? Detective Tatsuno, why are you doing this? Is that really Maria? My captor removes my blindfold. Blimp. The first thing I see is a huge blimp drifting slowly by overhead. Huh. I'm sure I've seen it before. And pretty recently at that. There's a flash of revelation inside my head. Like a dam bursting. My memories come flooding back to me. Taser, blue minivan, necklace dropped, blimp. Warehouse. Last night, I was at a party, a sort of mixer with the exchange students. Someone was planning to use this party as an opportunity to abduct my sister, Hitomi. And so I told Hitomi that the party started 1 hour later than it really did. I had a plan. To let myself get abducted in Hitomi's place. Of course, the idea was wasn't just to let myself get kidnapped. The necklace I wore was outfitted with a tiny GPS. Right, she did say Kanan gave her something that she could track her with. Wherever I happened to be taken, Kanan would be able to track my location. What we hadn't counted on, though, was my necklace getting torn off when I was attacked. I'd managed to grab hold of it, but I hit my head when I was being shoved into the car, and it slipped from my grasp. I'm not sure how far we drove after that. In my fuzzy memories, I recall gazing blearily out the car window. That was when I saw the blimp, right after we parked. Yes, it went fine. There's a man talking to someone on a cell phone. Alright, I'll shut her up inside the storeroom. I'll be waiting in the room upstairs. The man dragged me out of the car and shoved me into some dark storeroom. So, the kidnappers... Kanan knows that the kidnappers are going after Hitomi. Kanan warns Maria. Maria plans to get kidnapped herself. But why are they in Endo's storeroom? We know this because we can see like heaters and other electronics, and they did talk about it being an electronic storeroom. And the other group, the SOS, also mentioned Endo's storeroom. Then I guess for good measure, he hit me on the head again. So, did Endo kidnap Hitomi? Or did Endo plan to kidnap Hitomi so that he could get the heart? Is he working with the kidnappers? Like the kidnappers get her blood with the antibodies and he gets the heart? Or did they both happen to want to kidnap the same girl around the same time and got in each other's way? I guess we'll find out, but this looks like Daisuke right now. Yeah, that looks like Daisuke. Daisuke Endo. And he said he'd be in the room above, which I assume is the storeroom is basically... Yeah, I don't know. That's right. There's more of it coming back to me now. You spent your life living in a country at peace in Japan. You couldn't possibly understand me. Kanan again. So it's not like she and I became fast friends right away or anything. The two of us were too different in a lot of ways. Where do you draw the line? What would you protect with your life? What does justice mean to you? A forlorn look came to her face whenever Kanan asked me a new question. And I never had a good answer for any of them. My flimsy grasp on my own personal identity made it hard for us to get along, yet I kept visiting Kanan's place for the duration of my trip. Yeah. But maybe the mastermind found out that Endo wanted Hitomi and used that? Because the mastermind likes to make mistakes, right? To keep people guessing. Like purposeful mistakes. I don't know. I recall doing the cat's cradle there, at the table one time when we didn't have anything in particular to talk about. Her eyes had gone wide when she saw me deftly manipulating the string with my fingers. Who taught you how to do that? She asked. My mother. My real mother, that is. Kanan furrowed her brow. What did you mean, real? As opposed to my stepmother, I mean. My birth mother died after getting really sick. I was only 5 years old, so I don't remember her that well. I see, Kanan said. Her expression remained unchanged. What about your parents, Kanan? I don't have any. They died during the war. The bluntness of her response made my hand stop. The strings still stretched between them. Sensing that we were treading on some serious ground, I hurried to change the subject. Do you have any friends? No. Well, I used to have one. Her use of the past tense made me fear the worst, and I was right. He was killed too, by an arms dealer named Alphard. Her tone was dry and matter-of-fact. So yeah, Alphard is the mastermind. So it's interesting that she has history with this Alphard. Which is interesting because when she first talked to Achi and Hitomi, she acted like she didn't know who the mastermind was. And she might have not, but the fact that she knew that they were going to kidnap Hitomi, and the fact that she has passed with Alphard as well as the American, I don't know. Taking revenge for his death is my sole purpose in life. Despite the gravity of her words, her face was an unreadable mask. She seemed almost incapable of human emotion. So, what sort of person is this Alphard? A destructionist who masquerades as a terrorist. Destructionist? That sure wasn't a term that came up a lot back in Japan. Alphard does not believe in God and holds no political ideology. The chaos and destruction is just to earn money in order to carry out more terrorist attacks. So you're saying this Alphard commits terrorism because it's fun? Kanan nodded. That's why every now and then Alphard changes loyalties. Just when you think you've found ties to some Middle Eastern terrorist organization, it turns out the job was for the American CIA. What the heck? So Alphard stands for nothing then? Kanan smiled dismissively at my little childish outburst. I couldn't help but feel a bit patronized. I twiddled my fingers, turning my cat's cradle into a bridge. Kanan's eyes fixed right back on the string. A tiny surge of pride replaced my annoyance. She went quiet, watching closely as I worked my fingers. The tension in the room faded as the silence between us lengthened. My stepmother's the sort of person who couldn't do this sort of thing, I said at last. For some reason, I had the sudden urge to talk about my personal life. I guess she cares about herself more than looking after her children. She's not a bad person, though. She gives me weird bits of advice, like telling me to find someone to date, or that a woman's life is defined by a man. But it's not like I hate her or anything. Would you mind teaching me? Kanan asked softly. What, how to find a guy to date? No. She shook her head. Then she pointed to the cat's cradle strung between my fingers. Well, we just, like... She refuses to see I as a bad person, but we all know. We've seen what she's capable of. Oh, you mean this? So I took her by the hand and started to teach her the cat's cradle. Oh, I love those boots, Maria. Hey, do you mind if I ask you something? I said after a while. What's that? That friend you mentioned earlier. What was he like? Kanan's fingers went still. It's better if you don't ask. If I tell you, you won't want to come here anymore. That's not true, I insisted. Even though I'm a terrorist, she replied curtly. One who uses fear and violence to attain political objectives, The term has its origins in the Reign of Terror in 18th century France, known in French as La Terreur. I can't French, I'm sorry. I swallowed a sudden lump in my throat, unable to find words. We fight for righteousness, but you people call us terrorists. In the religious sense, the state of being virtuous, free of sin, and observant of the proper rules of moral conduct. Not the same as being in the right, though many people equate the two. Am I wrong? She cast a quick look at my face. But I mean, you protected me. My voice wavered as I replied. All I did was take some ducks. I didn't want them around anymore. What could I say to that? I just stammered. Nah, I'm just messing with you. Huh? Kanan flashed me another slight condescending grin. I was just joking, don't worry about it. But I didn't get the sense that everything she said was a joke. Even if calling herself a terrorist was an exaggeration, the world Kanan lived in was unquestionably a dangerous one. I can tell that from the cold look in her eyes, a look you'd never expect from an ordinary teenage girl. What sort of hardships had she endured to acquire that deadly stare? Having lived all my life in peaceful Japan, I could scarcely imagine. Kanan tried and failed several times to get the cat's cradle right, but she didn't give up. She worked fastidiously, by herself, fingers continuing to shift awkwardly about. Okay, here we go. She hooked the string around her fingers and spread her palms. But the string shape just collapsed into a jumbled mess. Confound it. Well, okay, one more time. You can make this into a game with two people, you know. I plucked the string from Kanan's hands. You pass the string back and forth. Why don't we try that? It's more fun than doing it by yourself. I wrapped the string around my fingertips. What do you say? Want to give it a go? Kanan looked dubious. The intricately intertwined strings were like the world in a way. What had started as a single thread was now something that couldn't be undone just by pulling on it. I held my hands out, twirling the string around my fingers. Kanan took the pattern from me and spread her palms apart. She made a perfect bridge between her hands. The shy grin that came to her face made her finally look like a normal girl. I followed suit with a childish little laugh of my own. And as if in a blaze of sunshine, the fog that's been hanging over my mind finishes receding. I remember everything. My name is Maria Osawa. My sister is Hitomi Osawa. And Kanan? She's a dear friend who I met in a far-off land. She helped me once, and now it's my turn to help her. I close my eyes as I reflect upon these precious moments of memories, all the dearer for having been lost. Now when I try to picture Kanan, I can do so clearly. It's just as if I thought before. My memories are what make me who I am, and I would never choose to forget them. I feel almost as if time had stopped for me while my history was gone, and now it started moving again. I'm finally back to being me. FMV! Yeah. And I have to go. I have to go back there one more time. What? Okay, I noticed that this game keeps track of endpoints. End of her story, and... Is she just done after this hour? Can't think of any way I would influence this differently. I think that is just the end of Maria's story. Yeah. Like, I assume Kano has killed Tatsuno, and Maria is just going to be part of the story, but not as a playable. Probably because she won't have as much agency, because she might be... Well, I mean, they're probably going to quarantine her, or try to get her to Osawa to get healed. So because we said something different, we put into the media that what's the guy's name? What's the Osawa's assistant? Takeda? We told them to release that information to the public, and now Minorikawa is got a different Tanaka. Thank you. Minorikawa is got a different path. Minorikawa snapped back into the present as a sheaf of papers appeared in front of his face. Here you go, Chiaki said, radiating anxiety. Right. This is all still the same. Okay, so we are stopped at the her trying to stop Minorikawa from signing the paperwork that would move Toyama's debt to him. I love her watch. I can't quite make out how you tell time with it, but I love it. But why would you take such a risk? Chiaki sobbed. Minorikawa lowered his voice. Because I owe him so much. I can't stand by and let these scumbags kill his daughter. Minorikawa readied his pen and signed the document. So Hana didn't show up. Alright, Sagawa cheered. Now we're talking. A satisfied grin came to Ozu's face as he reached for the contract. But before he could pick it up, Chiaki snatched it from the desk. And ate it. I'm not letting you do this. Crumpling the paper, she stuffed it right into her mouth. I didn't realize she had keys as earrings. She's all about fashion. Hey, Sagawa snapped. What the hell are you doing? He tried to force Chiaki's mouth open. Don't you dare, you bitch! But despite his frantic efforts, Chiaki managed to gulp the wad of paper down. Whoa, that's hard. Good job, Chiaki. Sagawa blinked a few times. Oh no, you did not just do that. Ozu looked on, dub-struck. Guess we gotta get a new contract from the office, boss. Bring as many as you want, Chiaki declared. I'll just keep eating them. What a threat. Girl, you got some damn goat, or you some kind of damn goat or something. That's a good line. That's an excellent line. The mental image of a goat eating paper is a common one, dating back to long ago when paper was made solely out of plant material. If a goat were to eat modern paper, the wad of chemically treated pulp would go undigested and possibly cause an intestinal blockage. So please do not feed paper to goats. Okay, chat? Don't feed paper to goats. Our paper is fucked up and evil. Sagawa shoved Chiaki up against the desk. Ow, cut it out. That hurts. As she struggled to resist, Chiaki lurched towards the desk, planting one of her hands atop the TV remote control. One of her fingers happened to land on the volume up button. FMV! FMV television volume. The sound from the television set soon hit max volume. We've just learned the identity of the victim killed in the explosion. Shibuya resident and pharmaceutical executive. Shibuya resident? Minorikawa tilted his head in confusion. Toyama didn't live in Shibuya. Once again, the victim of the explosion was Shibuya resident and pharmaceutical company executive Mamoru Tanaka, age 40. The cause of the explosion remains unknown. The police are still in the process of following up several potential leads. Wow, truce around. The site of the incident remains an alarming scene, with relief workers continuing to tend to the wounded. The 4 people in the editing office spoke in near unison. Huh? Who's Tanaka? Oh, I think we're at everyone's end, so we're gonna get the next hour preview. I like the combine just like, huh? What? Only 4 remain. Are you scared about meeting with your father? Someone's broken through our firewall. I'm sorry, Mr. Mino. Whoa, there's someone with flames in eyes. You'll lose everything. Oh, someone's got a bunch of bananas. No. I can't even loop them anymore. It won't let me even go to the blank spot to get to Achi. It just refuses. Maria, you've been great to us. You've had such a pleasant storyline. Now you've just been reduced to a story point, an NPC. I don't think I'm quite ready to get back into the heavy stuff, but I feel like everyone is just knee-deep in heavy stuff now. But let's go check out Minorikawa, since he just found out Toyama didn't kill himself. Point. The TV news continued to report on how Mamoru Tanaka had been killed in the minivan explosion. What? What does this mean? Chiaki blinked in confusion. I mean, Hana told us herself that the van explosion was her father committing suicide, didn't she? The only explanation I can think of, Minorikawa replied, is that Hana was lying. He scratched his head as he considered the situation. But why? Chiaki said. Ozu let out a snort. Well, it would seem Mr. Toyama had her lie in order to deceive us. What an upstanding individual, using his own daughter to buy himself some time. Minorikawa wanted to yell at the guy, but he managed to hold his tongue. The important thing was that Toyama was still alive. And if he was still alive, then there was still a way to save Heaven Publishing. They'd get the current issue out on time, with a big scoop waiting in the wings for the issue after that. From there on out, it should be smooth sailing. Oh, no matter, Ozu said. Seeing as Mr. Toyama isn't dead after all, we'll just wait for him here. He sat back down on the sofa. But Sagawa leaned threateningly towards Chiaki. Hey, he snarled. You sure you don't know where that guy is hiding out? I don't, Chiaki sat back. And even if I did, I would never tell you. Say what now? He leaned in even closer, just as she stood on her tiptoes, in defiance, and their foreheads collided with a dull thud. Both reeled back, clutching their heads in their hands. Just calm down, Chiaki, Minorikawa said as he began rooting through Toyama's desk. For now, I'm gonna have to look for clues to where Toyama might have gone. You just focus on working on your article. Oh? Ozu raised an eyebrow. Getting all cooperative all of a sudden, I see. I want to change up the plan for next month's issue, and I can't do that without Editor-in-Chief's approval. What Minorikawa was actually looking for, however, was a back issue of 4-Star General Gossip. He was pretty sure the article on Osawa had been printed in the magazine's inaugural issue. If he could find that scandalous piece that the scientist had asked for, he'd also be able to get his big lead about the power balance of the world being at stake. And if he could get that, not only would next month's issue be a sure thing, it was a good bet that sales figures would go through the roof. He found a file folder full of early material and quickly flipped through it. It didn't take him long to find the article. Floundering Okashi Pharmaceutical arranges marriage of political convenience. The large headline practically jumped off the page. Minorikawa quickly read over the story. The basic gist of it was this. The corporate director of Okoshi Pharmaceutical had sacrificed his daughter in order to keep a researcher named Kenji Osawa on board. The daughter, however, had previously been dating another man. That must be what Osawa wanted to look into. The guy's wife had been dating before they were married. It should be easy enough to just ask whoever had written the article. Minorikawa's gaze jumped to the end of the piece, looking for the writing credit. The piece had been written by Toyama himself. "Hey, ain't you done yet?" Sagawa yelled. "Tell us where Toyama is already." Yeah, Minorikawa thought. We're going to need to do something about these guys. "I'm still looking into it," he said. "Just hold on." He made a show of opening and closing various desk drawers. The drawers themselves were packed with a jumbled mess of electrical and gas bills, noodle house delivery menus, and the like. "Look faster," Sagawa growled. For now, Minorikawa decided he'd better butter up this guy up. Maybe he could mollify this guy by having some noodles delivered for dinner. Everyone gets noodles! "Hey, you guys hungry? I was thinking of ordering some soba." "Man, this ain't not time for that," Sagawa snarled. "Besides, we just had soba anyhow. And it was awful. Don't talk to me about noodles." Sagawa launched into a shadowboxing session, as if trying to punch out the provider of his disappointing soba. The guy clearly had zero capacity for sitting still. Minorikawa had found the back issue of the gossip he was looking for. He still needed Chiaki's article though, and she wasn't quite finished yet. He had to buy some more time. "By the way," he said to Sagawa, "are you familiar with SOS?" "SOS?" The thug paused mid-jab. "Yeah, SOS. I was planning on interviewing them later today. Hear they're some pretty tough guys." "Only one of them who'd be able to give me a fight would probably be that Achiendo. Except as I hear it, he's gone left the gang." "Ah, really now? Heard anything else interesting?" "Sounds like nowadays they're being run by some guy named Susumu." The name Susumu rang a bell. These two young punks who'd been arguing after the van explosion had mentioned him. Seems like SOS is in a pretty rough state since Achi left, though, Sagawa added. Minorikawa didn't miss a beat. "What do you mean, rough state?" "Back in the day, they were all goody two-shoes. Never shake folks down, or steal, or any of that stuff. Guess their founder Achi hated that sort of thing. But now that he's out, a lot of rough and tumble hot-blooded types have been signing up with them. Smart move is to not get involved with SOS nowadays, really. Hard to find a scarier bunch around here when there's a lot of them together." And their main hangout. That's at Inferno, yeah? "Yeah, over in Uruharajuku. Known as Urahara for short, the area east of the Japan Rail Harajuku Station, around where Takashita Dori meets Meiji Dori. There are many small clothing and accessory stores here, set up in renovated houses. Most of these shops are on the cutting edge of the youth fashion, offering quirky and unique means of personal expression." "Man, you've been listening out on the streets. What gives?" "Uruharajuku, eh?" Minorikawa smiled to himself. Inferno's location had practically fallen into his lap. Suddenly, Sagawa's eyes went wide. "Aha, so that's where Toyama is." "Wait, nah, no way. A coward like him would go to a place like that." Chiaki looked up from her keyboard. "Look, can you please shut up?" "No, you shut up." I hope Chiaki beats the shit out of this guy. "That's my phone." Minorikawa pulled his cell out of his pocket. Osawa? Oh, it was Toyama. It was Toyama's name on the incoming call screen. Minorikawa's heart skipped a beat. Toyama, where are you? He blurted out as he picked up. Chiaki, Uzu, and Sagawa turned to look at him as one. Well, what were you thinking faking your death like that? Even if we could fill those pages and postpone repayment, all it would do is delay the inevitable. Oh, this is Toyama saying. Even if we could fill those pages and postpone repayment, all it would do is delay the inevitable. I'd still be up to my ears in debt. So I thought if I made it look like I was dead. Minorikawa let out an exasperated sigh. Well, everyone already knows you're still alive, so your little attempt at subterfuge didn't even wind up buying you time. What? Toyama's hysterical squeak was painful to hear. Alright, listen up, Minorikawa said. If it's the debt you're worried about, you'll be able to pay that back real soon. What do you mean? I've landed a huge scoop. You could do a print run of 1 million copies and still sell out, if you can run it as an article. Toyama perked right up. Wait, you really mean it? I'll give you all the details, just get your butt back here. But aren't those loan sharks there at the office right now? Fine, then I'll come to you. Tell me where you are. The two thugs crowded nearer, a predatory gleam in their eyes. And Minorikawa had a flash of inspiration. Got it, he said quickly before Toyama could respond. Miyashita Park. I'm on my way now, don't go anywhere. Ozu and Sagawa grinned at one another, then bolted out the door. Dummies. Heh, Minorikawa said as their footsteps receded. Those guys took the bait. I sent them to Miyashita Park. He allowed himself a cocksure grin. Toyama's gonna be at the park, isn't he? Right then, so where are you really, Toyama? You imbecile! I am at Miyashita Park! I called that one. I knew that was coming. What? Minorikawa fought the urge to pull his hair out. What the hell are you doing someplace like that? Why the hell did you tell them Miyashita Park? I thought it would be a clever ruse. Well, it wasn't. This is no time to be fighting, Chiaki butted in. Yeah, you're right, Minorikawa scowled. Anyway, Toyama, those guys are headed your way. We need you to get out there and go someplace we can talk. I can meet you there. Right, okay. They needed someplace safe and public where they could speak freely. Someplace where the staff wouldn't be overly nosy. But where, Minorikawa thought. The familiar cafe by the station was a natural choice. Recalling the noodle house from the menu he'd seen earlier, he opted for that. Nothing suitable came to mind, probably. If we go back to the cafe, we might get more of that maid that does not want to does not want to deal with Minorikawa's bullshit. A familiar cafe by the station was a natural choice. He quickly described the location. Okay, Toyama said. Cafe Lautrec, got it. I'll see you there. He hung up and Minorikawa quickly gathered his belongings. Chiaki, how's that copy coming along? Well, almost done? Just a little more, I think. Alright, bring your computer and come with me. I'll read over what you've got so far. Minorikawa waited as Chiaki got ready to head to the cafe. As the two were heading out of the office, however, someone else opened the door. You've got 14 minutes and 57 seconds left to send to press. The writer submits to the editor submits to the designer. This is the next step in that whole handoff process. Naturally, being late for this causes quite a lot of trouble. 56, 55. A slender man with a gaudy necktie entered the room and sat down on the nearest desk, staring fixedly at his pocket watch. Who the fuck is this? Is this the boss of those two guys? Minorikawa narrowed his eyes dubiously. Who the hell are you? Always make sure to show up 15 minutes ahead of the appointed time. That's just common decency. The man gave no indication he'd even heard Minorikawa's question. I suppose I can wait here, he continued, just for another 14 minutes and 20 seconds. Mr. Mino? Is this guy talking about our submission? Chiaki stared doubtfully at the newcomer. Hey you, Minorikawa asked. Are you from the printer? But the man did not reply. Don't ignore me. Are you from the printer? Still, the man remained silent. Minorikawa was furious. Look, cut the crap, he roared. In response, the man quietly reached into his suit pocket and pulled out his business card. My name is not Hey You. He handed the card to Minorikawa. It read, Cho Nippon Printing Company Limited, Sales Department Division Number 1, Koichiro Katayama. I'm Koichiro Katayama, newly assigned to Heaven Publishing. A pleasure to meet you. My predecessor is in the hospital due to a car accident. Sachio Usui, 39 years old, single, a longtime veteran at Cho Nippon Printing, rather timid by nature. The strain of dealing with publishers makes him sick to his stomach. At around 1:10 p.m. earlier today, while driving to meet one of his clients, he had to swerve to avoid a young man and woman who darted into the street. He crashed into the car next to him and ended up at the hospital. Clearly this is not our fault. We didn't do that. Oh, just in case you don't get it. He should make a complete recovery in about 2 months. Well, what are you doing here, Katayama? Minorikawa asked. I thought we had until 8 o'clock to complete proofreading. 8 o'clock? Surely you must be joking. Our company's proofreading deadline is 5:30. Katayama stared fixedly back at Minorikawa. Now that had to be a joke. I heard from the editor-in-chief that it was 8 o'clock. I take that to mean that you don't have any copy for us. It's not that we don't have it, Minorikawa said. It's just not finished yet. Just hold on until 8. Katayama raised an eyebrow. No. Publisher and printer need to work in concert. Perhaps my predecessor was the sort to delay the proofreading deadline owing to your circumstances here. But now I'm in charge, and I do not make exceptions. The proofing deadline is 5:30 sharp, and I intend to keep it that way. And while we've been having this discussion, you're down to 12 minutes and 32 seconds. Katayama held out his pocket watch as if to emphasize the point. That's ridiculous, Minorikawa exclaimed. So who the hell do you think you are? You guys are going to be printing a paper that I wrote. Do you even know how lucky that makes you? So just wait, okay? Just give us... I say till the 8 o'clock. Just give us until 8 o'clock. That was the original understanding. It was unfair to change it now. 8 o'clock, And where's your guarantee that you'll finish by then? We will, just trust us. Trust me. I'm supposed to heedlessly trust the word of a man I've just met, Katayama mused. We're down to 10 minutes and 46 seconds, by the way. You son of a bitch. Don't get all high and mighty just because you work for the printer. High and mighty? I'd say it's the people on the publishing side of things that act high and mighty. Whatever high-minded claims you might make, without us you'd have nothing to put on the store shelves. Forgetting that and blatantly ignoring your proofing deadline makes for more work on our end. Just what are you getting at, I wonder? Now it's 10 minutes and 20 seconds. Minorikawa grounded his teeth so hard he could hear it. His usual tactics were useless here. Katayama was simply too unflappable to be browbeaten. If he backed down now, though, it was game over. I like that the noose is still set up in the office. Just a friendly reminder. 10 minutes, 7 seconds remaining. I realize there's a little point, but I'll wait until the designated time. That's just common decency. Katayama's pet phrase, Thus far, he has said that's just common decency 3 times in this story. Always make sure to show up 15 minutes ahead of the appointed time. I realize there's a little point, but I'll wait until the designated time. There was one more. Do you know when and where it was? No. Katayama's eyes were once again locked on his pocket watch. It was no use. Minorikawa couldn't find a way to talk this guy around. Chiaki held her hand up. May I say something? Isn't it also common decency not to break a promise once it's been made? If you're referring to the 8 o'clock deadline, I was not the one who promised that. Maybe not, but I believe your predecessor's responsibilities became your responsibilities. Katayama crossed his arms and gave her a bemused look. What's your name, miss? Chiaki, she said bashfully. Chiaki Iso. The printer's expression brightened visibly. Good. That timid hesitation of yours is just splendid. You have none of the arrogance so typical among publishers. Huh? Chiaki was taken rather aback. In deference to your polite demeanor, I shall wait until 7 o'clock. That is the latest I can possibly allow. Alright, Minorikawa shouted, practically in Katayama's face. We agree to those terms. No, I wasn't talking to you, but we've got we've got terms of our own. Katayama reeled ever so slightly. I'm not certain you're in any position to set terms here. Just shut up and listen. From here on out, you're coming with us. What? Why? We're going to finish up our copy on site, then burn the data onto CD and hand it over to you there. Look, I know it's 2008, but the flash drive big enough for this information had to have existed, right? That's why. Katayama let out a sigh of resignation. Like, you could have had an iPod Shuffle that holds like half a gig, right? And you could use it as a flash drive. You had a 1 gig in 2008? Look at you. No, I think they have lenses. True, but I mean, he's kind of pressed for getting the information to the guy, right? I don't know. Fuck it, CD-ROM, I guess. It's still plentiful. I think he's got lenses. I can see like the right of his left lens kind of has a blur. You know? Oh, very well. I suppose I'd simply be waiting here anyway. Minorikawa pumped his fist in a victory. Alright, Chiaki. Go and copy the DTP data we've got so far on your computer. Sure thing, Mr. Mino. Chiaki quickly set about copying the data from the editing department's desktop. Okay, done. Then let's go! With the others in tow, Minorikawa headed to the cafe where Toyama would be waiting. I hope I sent Toyama in the wrong way. They reached Cafe Lautrec without incident, and Minorikawa promptly spotted the publisher. Over here, Toyama hissed, eyeing his surroundings with obvious unease. Hana sat by his side, sullenly sipping some juice. The waitress came over as Minorikawa joined them. May I take your order? She asked. I don't know why this face got me. Minorikawa's face right here? Because I know it's the same waitress, right? And she's probably just does not want to see him. It's a good Minorikawa face. Yeah, it is. Just water, sir? Fine, make it a double. Exasperated, the waitress headed back to the kitchen. Toyama looked over at Katayama. Who is this guy? I'm Koichiro Katayama from Cho Nippon Printing. Katayama presented his business card. Toyama turned to Minorikawa with a quizzical look. What's someone from the printer doing with you? I'll explain later. There's no time for that right now, Minorikawa replied. Oh my god, her laptop! First I need you to answer some questions. Does the name Kenji Osawa ring any bells? Osawa. Toyama closed his eyes and thought. He heads up a laboratory at Okoshi Pharmaceutical. You ran a piece. Oh, that's Minorikawa. He heads up a laboratory at Okoshi Pharmaceutical. You ran a piece on him in the first ever issue of 4-Star General Gossip. Toyama's face lit up with recognition. Ah, yes, that political marriage piece. Yeah, that one. Do you remember the details from that article? Of course. Who do you think I am? Toyama puffed himself up proudly. I used to be the local news copy editor for the Central Times. I've got the details for all the stuff I've ever covered here in my head. In that case, do you know who Kenji Osawa's wife was dating before they got married? Toyama blinked his eyes vacantly. Hey, what's the matter? Minorikawa asked. This is a pretty tough pop quiz you're giving me. Surprise, kids, it's time for a science quiz. What colorless, odorless gas, lighter than air... lighter than... Wait. Plum, I'm gonna need another, another emote. What colorless, odorless gas, lighter than and air, and used for consumer and municipal gas applications is also known as marsh gas or swamp gas? Helium, ethylene, propane, or methane? Tune in for the answer. Plombo, what odorless gas, lighter than and air, and used for consumer municipal gas? Consumer municipal gas, I guess that'd be propane, right? It's odorless. Methane isn't odorless. Helium's, I wouldn't really... helium's not used for municipal gas application, right? Ethylene... No, I think it's propane. Cut the crap, man. I guess... I don't know what would be called swamp gas, because I've never heard the term. The fact that you would call something odorless, and then call it swamp gas is really... It could be ethylene. Ethylene is used in gas applications. Doesn't methane have odor? Cut the crap, man. You just said you had all the details inside your head. Oh, they're in there, alright. They're just not coming out. Minorikawa slumped. Yeah, it was odorless. Mr. Toyama, please. Whether or not you'll be able to pay off your debts depend on your memory here. Hearing this, Hana cast a cold glare up at her father. Alright, I can remember, or I can at least try. Toyama folded his arms and hummed to himself, his gaze turned inward. So... I feel like it was a really common name. Sato. Chiaki chirped. Yamada. Was it either of those? They're pretty common names. But Toyama shook his head. Minorikawa offered a guess of his own. Well, I mean, I know that I would guess Tanaka. 'Cause I know the person, me, the player. But not me. Minorikawa wouldn't jump to that. Though Tanaka is a pretty common name. But so is Suzuki and so is Takahashi. I don't know how common Endo is. Not really familiar. I'm just gonna go with Tanaka. Tanaka. No, not that. There's something else. Just then the television inside the cafe switched over to a news report on the Shibuya explosion. The remains of the individual discovered within the minivan itself, who has since been identified as pharmaceutical company executive Mamoru Tanaka. Mamoru Tanaka? Toyama turned around to look at the TV. An image of the victim's face appeared on the screen. What? The publisher blurted, nearly falling out of his seat. That's it! It was him! Right there! Mamoru Tanaka. That's what I said! Tanaka! Toyama pointed excitedly at the TV screen. That's who Kenji Osawa's wife was dating before they got married? That's who Kenji Osawa's wife was dating before they got married. Mamoru Tanaka. Minorikawa felt himself getting goosebumps. The victim of the terrorist bombing in Shibuya was also linked to the researcher who was a key to a terrorist viral scare? His reporter's hunch was now a certainty. Right now, Shibuya was at the center of some massive conspiracy. This went far beyond even a major scoop. Mr. Toyama, we need to make sure that next month's issue hits shelves. Minorikawa called up Kenji Osawa to let him know the results of his little investigation. So we have a jump point for Kenji Osawa, but we haven't played him yet, so I'm just gonna hold on to that. The man didn't seem terribly surprised. Probably had his suspicions all along. Osawa told him that there was something he needed to do before he was ready to give details on the big scoop, but that he would call back later. In the meantime, Minorikawa knew he'd have his hands full getting the current issue of the gossip wrapped up for the 7 o'clock deadline. He slapped his hands down on the table. Alright, emergency editing meeting right here, he announced. I love her laptop. We need to get the lead. We need to get a lead in on the Shibuya terrorist bombing and into the next issue. The article about the twins winning the beauty contest can be dropped for that. We'll use the info from Kenji Osawa as the basis for a big scoop in the issue after that. Mr. Chiyama, any problems with that? No, that should be fine. But what about the remaining pages for next month's issue? Minorikawa opened the file on his computer. The layout built in the DTP came up on the monitor. The report on the Burning Hammer sales demo? The surveillance camera opinion piece? Look, it's your... Kuroshi's not here. It's Mr. Yanagashita. He's there in the bottom right. The interview with Orarai, who's, you know, on the left over there. Those three were finished, the copy already incorporated into the layout. Once Chiaki's street interview piece was loaded in, that one could be checked off as well. Chiaki, how's your copy coming along? I'm sorry, I just need a little bit longer. The writing seemed to still be giving her a fair bit of trouble. The article on SOS was still just a placeholder in the layout, and Minorikawa hadn't even gotten any material for that, putting it even further behind in Chiaki's street interviews. Still, he'd at least learned where Shibuya's legendary street gang made their hangout. He just had to take the risk of dropping in on them unannounced to ambush them with some interview questions. Clearly that's the best approach for like a punk kid gang. And then there was the lead-in for Shibuya bombing. That wasn't even in the layout yet. It was a completely blank slate. Against all odds, they were going to need to put that article together from nothing with just an hour and change. It was an impossible amount of work for just him and Chiaki to do. Well, and how are things coming along? Katayama rose and came closer, trying to peer at the monitor. Look here, Slachi. We just saw Mr. Yanagashita in newspaper form. He's been absent this whole time. Because this whole time it's just been like heavy ass shit. Katayama rose and came closer, trying to peer at the monitor. Minorikawa hurried to cover the screen. Don't look. If the printer rep saw all the blank pages, he might decide to stop waiting. Would you mind telling me what percent of the total? Would you mind telling me roughly what percent of the total you have completed thus far? I mean, I assume that he will get involved in the antics. What percent? Come off it, man. We're at 100%. If you're 100% done, that implies you're all finished. Could I please have the data then? He'll save the day. That's what your heart tells you. No, I'm saying our willpower's at 100%. I'm not gonna even pretend I understand what you mean by that. Shaking his head, Katayama sat back down in his chair. Minorikawa, Toyama asked, his expression uneasy. So I know I asked before, but why is someone from the printer here again? Katayama promptly chimed in. The long and short of it is that your proofing deadline has been changed to 7 o'clock, he said. What? But that's impossible. Who's doing the lead-in for the Shibuya bombing? Toyama eyed Minorikawa and then Chiaki. Both stared back non-committally. Then it really is impossible. We'll never meet the deadline. We don't have enough people. No, we do have enough people. Minorikawa thrust out his finger. Mr. Toyama, you're gonna write that one and handle the layout. What? Heaven Publishing is your company. Won't you step up in order to protect it? Toyama hung his head. Even if I headed to the scene right now, I'm sure the other outlets have already gotten their coverage. I wouldn't be able to find anything new to write about. Oh god, FMV punching him. And so you're just gonna give up? A moment later, Toyama was on the floor, Minorikawa glaring down at him. You've always said you wanted to tell the world about the things the mass media can't or won't write about. So what the hell difference does it make if they've already gone to sound bites if they've already gone to sound bites thereafter? Minorikawa's voice was raw with emotion. Don't you dare give up. Not that easily. Get your ass out there. Find something that only you can write about. Minorikawa. Toyama began to object, then he glanced over at Hana. There was an imploring look in her eyes as well. I get what you're saying, Toyama grumbled. But still, you're expecting a lot. But then, despite his words, he flashed a broad grin. Yeah, Minorikawa let out a quiet chuckle. And it's got you all fired up. Yeah, I'm fired up alright. Toyama's face shone with a resolve Minorikawa hadn't seen in a long time. There we go. That's the Toyama I know. You know, I'm really sorry. Now I see the huge burden I put on you. But damn it, it's gonna be alright. Getting to his feet, Toyama took his daughter by the hand and strode boldly out of the cafe, looking like a changed man. Minorikawa watched him go, glad that the dithering? I guess dithering. I'm so retro-pilled, in my brain, dithering is just one thing. And now I like, wait, do I have that on my character? No, that's pixelized. I'm a little dithered here. I don't have the other one. That's on my other scene. I have like a new version of dithering. I can do this though. I've never shown you guys this. That's my secret tech. I might tie that to like a point redeem or something. I have some ideas. We're planning the next overlay. Even if Toyama was still in his prime, he'd be cutting it close to that, close to do that article in an hour. Yeah, I have to imagine. And I'm pretty sure I have heard the use of it. It's just the only time I ever hear it nowadays is, you know, to reference one specific thing. But he would pull through somehow. You know, I asked the person I commissioned for the overlay to be PC98 style, which means there might be dithering on the new overlay. I'm excited. When it came to taking care of Hana, the man would rise to the occasion again and again. Father and daughter disappeared into the crowd, hand in hand. Minorikawa shook himself out of his reverie. All right, he cried. Despite the clear blue sky, an unexpected gust of wind blew across his cheek. Come on, guys, we gotta get going, too. Things might look grim, but he wasn't going to give up until the bitter end. It was time to head to the SOS hangout. Inferno. The three ran long and hard after leaving the cafe. So I understand why he's running. I understand why Chiaki's running. The fact that Kagayama is also running with them is really funny to me. If the proofing deadline was 7 o'clock, then they needed to finish up with SOS by 6:30 at the latest. The gang's hangout was in Harajuku. Running all the way there on foot was going to eat into too much of their time. Where's our boy? But traffic was at a near standstill for some reason, and there wasn't a taxi in sight. There's one. There's a taxi. That's another taxi. That's 2 taxis. You can't lie to me, photograph. I can clearly see them. How long do you plan on running like this? Katayama called out, panting. Just take a look at the road. With this traffic, there's no point in hailing a cab. Even Minorikawa was feeling the time pressure now. Poor Chiaki. We're just gonna have to keep running until the road's clear. What? Katayama wailed. Stop your whining. Just keep quiet and stick with me. He'd finally gotten Toyama to find his willpower again. Next month's issue would come out on time, and no way was some printer guy going to mess that up now. But the traffic showed no signs of abating. Catching a cab wasn't going to be an option. Fighting an ever louder echo of despair, Minorikawa kept up his desperate headlong rush. To rush into a situation recklessly or heedlessly, not quite the same as being Daredevil. Still, there were limits to how far the mind could push the body before exhaustion set in. Eek! Oh no! She took a spill. Oh no! This is awful! As they were running across a pedestrian overpass, Chiaki slipped and took a nasty fall. She skinned her knee hard enough to draw blood. Hey you! Minorikawa snapped at Katayama. Don't just stand there! Help the poor girl already! Katayama scurried over to Chiaki. I'm sorry, Miss Mino. Chiaki's voice... Oh, that's Chiaki. I'm sorry, Mr. Mino. Chiaki's voice bubbled with suppressed tears. Maybe it was cruel to her to make her run with her computer all the way to Harajuku. But the copy for her interview still needed to be looked over. They couldn't just leave her here. Minorikawa hesitated, undecided. Even at a full run, they wouldn't make it in time. And with traffic the way it was, there was nothing they could do. You now have... Katayama consulted his pocket watch. Exactly 1 hour remaining. So they must have just hit the end of the hour then. Damn it! Minorikawa raged. What do we do? Relentlessly, the clock ticked on. Is Chiaki gonna be okay? It was kind of brave of me to not finish up Kano's thing. I thought maybe this would take up the rest of the hour, and then I could like go in with the Kano thing. I get the feeling that Achi and Osawa are gonna find out what Achi did. Oh no! Someone disappeared. Yes, we've lost Maria. Let's see how that turns out. A gunshot rang out from Tatsuno's gun. But it was a wild shot, fired reflexively as the weapon flew out of his hand. A figure had leapt from behind the water storage tank, kicking him in the arm that held the hand. Then, moving almost too fast for the eye to track, the newcomer delivered an elbow strike to Tatsuno's jaw. Kano didn't even have the chance to fire his gun. Before he could react, Maria's kidnapper was already laid out on the ground. Well, that worked out. Without so much as looking back, the girl bolted down the stairs. "Maria!" Kano shouted. He started to chase after her, but a bright glimmer in the corner of his eye stopped him in his tracks. The strange assailant had drawn a knife and was preparing to slit the unconscious Tatsuno's throat. Kano quickly brought his gun back to bear. "Stop right there." The knife stopped mere millimeters from Tatsuno's neck. Kano was sure that if he hadn't intervened, the detective's throat would have been slit already. The knife wielder pulled back the hood that had been concealing her face. "You. I know you," Kano said, shocked to see that he recognized the attacker. It was the girl who'd been knocked down by the minivan explosion. "Why stop me?" she asked, her tone ice cold. "Weren't you just about to shoot him yourself?" "I don't have a reason to shoot him anymore. Not now that you've helped Maria escape. Please, put the knife away." "Very well. Looks like he's not waking up for a while anyway." The girl withdrew her knife and rose to her feet. "Why did you come to Maria's rescue?" "Because she's my friend," the girl said simply. "Ooh, that guy, he has slumped over." "She's been infected with a virus," Kano said. "We have to get her to help as soon as possible." He headed for the stairs that Maria had scampered down. "Not so fast. Don't move." The girl's sharp tone made Kano stop. "What for?" he demanded. "I thought you wanted to help." "I do want to help her, which is why I'm not letting the police get their hands on her." The girl's voice was quiet, but hard as steel. "The police are afraid of the UA virus spreading, which is why they'll certainly place Maria under quarantine. If that happens, there won't be any way to save her." "Just who in the world are you?" "Before I answer that, let's make a deal." Kano waited, non-committal. "I have information relevant to this case," the girl continued. "I want to make an exchange." Kano swallowed the lump in his throat. "An exchange for what?" "Tell me where Hitomi Osawa is." "Hitomi Osawa?" Stanley had taken Hitomi into custody. Kano could probably get in touch and ask him where she was, but... Why do you want to know where Hitomi is? Do we have a deal or not? The girl looked like she was in no mood to argue. Still, if she knew about the UA virus, she was probably telling the truth about having information. But it was a violation of police policy to leak information on any investigation to a third party. Besides, was it wise to trust this young woman without knowing who she was? Kano weighed his options for a moment before replying. Let's see Kano try to wheel and deal this. First, I need to know who you are. My name is Kanan. Kanan? Kano thought back to the grisly scene at the Foreign Syndicate's hideout. Did she do that? Kano was almost afraid to wonder. As if sensing his unease, Kanan spoke up, her voice low and calm. Once you hear what I have to say, I think you'll be more inclined to tell me where Hitomi is. There was still a lingering trace of adolescence in the strange girl's face. It was hard to believe someone so young could be a covert Middle Eastern operative, and yet Kano had seen how quickly she'd been able to render Tatsuno unconscious. Alright then, I guess I'll go first, Kanan began. There's someone out there trying to get their hands on the antiviral drug. My objective is to eliminate this person, and put a stop to their plan. Kano felt neither surprise nor horror at the use of the term eliminate. After all that had happened today, he realized his sensibilities had gone numb. This person you're after. You're talking about an arms dealer named Alphard, aren't you? Kanan nodded. The UA virus has been weaponized and tested several times on the battlefield to great effect, she said. The antiviral would render this weapon wholly ineffective. Countries the world over are dying to get their hands on it. Then why did Alphard orchestrate this kidnapping? If the goal is to get the antiviral, why not just steal it from the laboratory? There's a lot about this kidnapping case that still didn't add up. Kano was sure Alphard's plans was hidden in those baffling details. Lab security at Koshi Pharmaceutical is practically perfect. The place is under surveillance 24 hours a day, and getting to where the antiviral is stored requires bypassing 3 sophisticated electronic locks. Getting the antiviral out is impossible. Unexpectedly, a sly grin appeared on Kanan's face. If you were Alfred, how would you steal it? She asked. Huh? Kano was taken aback by the sudden question. He thought good and hard about how to answer. Kano is kind of a bimbo, but let's see if we can figure this out. If you can't sneak something out, maybe you can sneak something in. That is how Osawa got Maria the antibodies. Or not Maria, Hitomi, the antibody. The antiviral. Osawa heads up the lab, wouldn't he be able to get it out? That would be questioning why they didn't kidnap Osawa. Kenji Osawa, then. There must be some way to get those locks open, right? If they already had... I forgot his name. I keep asking. The guy that died in the explosion. Osawa's assistant. I don't know why I can't... Tanaka. It's Tanaka. I think it's because it's Tanaka. I can't remember it. Yeah, I'm gonna say maybe you can sneak something in. If you can't sneak something out, maybe you can sneak something in? Kano hadn't had any particular flash of insight. He just figured the opposite of the obvious might be the answer. To his surprise, Kanan gave a nod. See, I use logic and deduction. Very astute. Wait, really? I like that Kano... I like that in logic, in universe, Kano couldn't come up with that answer himself, and I just gave the opposite of whatever he was thinking, like flippantly, because Kano's a bimbo, a himbo, and we respect Kano here. 6 days ago, Alphard injected Hitomi Osawa with the UA virus. What? The tale had taken a sudden and very unexpected turn. I guess we now know how Hitomi got it. I mean, we can assume that happened. Though it is strange that Hitomi herself hasn't... Well, I guess she doesn't think about the virus. We do know that her teacher might be in on it. Maybe. Maybe? I don't know. I forget. I thought I had some hunch about her teacher. And it was his party that she would get kidnapped at. Because, like, how else would she get infected with the UA virus? So it wasn't only Maria who had been infected, but Hitomi as well? And 6 days ago, at that. Wait, hold on. Hitomi Osawa was perfectly healthy earlier today. So that must mean... Exactly. Kenji Osawa administered the antiviral to her. An unsettling thought occurred to Kano. It was supposedly impossible for Osawa to access the antiviral all by himself. But if he'd been able to give it to his daughter all the same, then that had to mean... He needed Mamoru Tanaka's help to do it, of course, Kanan said. Which is why Alphard bribed Tanaka ahead of time. So that's what happened. Tanaka had been paid off to inject Hitomi with the virus. I guess that's also like, he's close to Hitomi, so I guess that makes sense. Getting Osawa to take action at that point wouldn't have been difficult. But why go to such lengths to get the antiviral administered to Hitomi? Why would Alphard have Hitomi infected with the virus, only to then have her father cure it? It's been roughly a week since she was given the antiviral. The DDS is still in her body. The what? Essentially, taking blood from Hitomi Osawa now would allow someone to extract minuscule amounts of the antiviral. Kano was stunned. Suddenly all these seemingly unrelated threads were beginning to form a pattern. So, since getting the antiviral itself out of the lab wasn't an option, Alphard must have thought of using a human vessel, he murmured. Which means the thing that Alphard's really after is... Kanan nodded. Yes, Hitomi's blood, she finished. Alphard specifically requested that Hitomi make the ransom handoff, Kanan said. Additionally, the crime syndicate was hired to carry out a relay with the attaché case containing the ransom money. This would disrupt the investigation and distract the police, allowing the kidnappers to kidnap Hitomi in secret. Wait, no, hold on. There was something about the story that still made no sense to Kano. Tell me this, he said to Kanan. Why not just kidnap Hitomi in the first place? Why not use Tanaka for the vessel instead of Hitomi? Was there really no other way to get at the antiviral? Tanaka's a rough story, right? If Tanaka has the virus, would Osawa do what he did, right? Tanaka's like the only person that Osawa considered a friend, right? But I'm gonna ask the top question. Why did he not just kidnap Hitomi in the first place? Now we know that, or at least we think we know that that's what he tried to do, but Maria got in the way. But Kano doesn't know that, so we should get that information to Kano. Why not just kidnap Hitomi in the first place? That was the key question right there. Why kidnap Maria instead? If Alphard wanted Hitomi's blood, abducting her, not her sister, was the obvious move. Had the kidnappers mistaken Maria for Hitomi? Surely they couldn't have been so foolish as to abduct the wrong target. The girls hadn't gotten themselves mixed up, had they? I think these are all the same question. The two were twins after all, so it wasn't inconceivable, but... It's my fault that Maria was kidnapped. Kanan looked away. I contacted her before all this started. I told her about the kidnapping plan, and I gave her a GPS beacon to give to her sister so that I could track Hitomi's location after she was abducted. But my plan backfired. Maria switched places with Hitomi and let herself get taken by Alphard. What the hell? Why hadn't Maria taken this to the police? Where if she was so determined to protect her sister, why not just get her to leave town or something like that? There must have been some sort of accident though, Kanan continued. The GPS was never turned on after the kidnapping, and I wasn't able to track Maria down. But there was something that even Alphard hadn't counted on. Kanan cast a glance over at Tatano. This person right here, she said. So, Tatano had disrupted Alphard's plans by going after Hitomi himself. Concerning where it all led, Kanan continued, Alphard must be panicking about now. But we can't let down our guard. Even now I'm sure the mastermind is thinking of some way to fit what this man has done into his master plan. So it's a perfectly imperfect plan. Is that what you're saying? Precisely. Kanan flashed Kano an approving grin. I heard that from Stanley, Kano said. The man who drove you to the hospital earlier. That case officer, huh? Case officer? So that was it. Stanley was CIA. The U.S. Embassy in Akasaka functions as the headquarters for the CIA's Japan branch. As the embassy building is not reliably secure, however, the agency carries out many of its activities in specially constructed embassy annex facilities, often under the guise of cultural exchange organizations. There are reportedly over 100 CIA personnel active in Japan, but given the inherent secrecy involved, the exact number is not officially known. Now that Kano thought about it, it all made sense. Since Alphard is an arms dealer with worldwide connections, I don't know what nation might be trying to obtain the antiviral. That's Kanan speaking. Obviously any country that has the viral weapon would want to prevent their enemies from obtaining it. It's no huge surprise that people are butting in trying to put a stop to Alphard's plan. A tiny beeping sound caught Kano's attention. Kanan pulled a PDA from her breast pocket. 2008, baby! A personal digital assistant refers to various types of small portable devices for information management, occasionally also referred to as a handheld PC. Ah, look at that pocket PC! Ah, I think it's an iPac, or the Compact's pocket PC. I had one of these, not this model, but I had a Compact branded pocket PC. I used to play like emulators on it. Of course I did. I'm fucking trying to play Pac-Man and Ghouls and Ghosts on this thing. Interesting. The GPS I gave to Maria has just been powered on. Now I can find her location. Where is she? She's on the move. But why is the GPS suddenly active now? Kanan frowned. At any rate, I told you what I know. Now tell me where Hitomi is. Alright. Kano got his phone and called Stanley. Yeah, we might be wrapping up shortly. I just realized it was 4 minutes to 2. The American was quick to pick up. What's going on? Where's Hitomi? We're on our way to Endo Electronics in Dogenzaka. Endo Electronics? Why are you going there? Kano's familiar with the dilapidated old storefront. He had passed by the place countless times. Too long of a story. There's a lot that's happened, Stanley replied. How are things on your end? About as bad as they could be, but I'm getting closer to the truth. Please make sure you keep Hitomi safe. Alphard is after her blood. Her blood? Kano told Stanley what he'd heard from Kanan. I see. So that's what's going on. Once we're finished with things in Dogenzaka, I'll bring Hitomi right back to the precinct. Where is she? Kanan asked as soon as Kano hung up. She's on her way to an electronics store in Dogenzaka. I see. Kanan checked Maria's location on her PDA. First I need to get to Maria, she said. I'll get to Hitomi after that. I'm going with you. Be my guest. With that, Kanan was off and running. I assume she is just like Batmaning around. Kano took one last glance at the unconscious Tatano, then hurried after Kanan as fast as he could. Not even gonna arrest the guy? I guess he doesn't have time. It just said save, so I think we're gonna call it here. Yeah, okay. I think that was a good place to end that. Looks like Achi and Hitomi are currently in Stanley's, I almost said possession. What do you call, like, police stuff? When someone's... I don't know. The word is blanky on my brain. Maria is just done. She's out of here. She remembered everything, though. Got her whole memory back. And I imagine Osawa is still trying to figure out how he can save Maria. Yeah, she is at an end. But yeah, that's gonna do it for... I thought Escape would quit the game. How do you quit the game from the screen? It's not escape. I don't actually know how to properly quit the game from the screen without a controller. Nope, stop. Controller still doesn't want to work. The game sometimes doesn't understand controllers. Custody, that's the word. Yeah, that's the word. Sorry, at 2 a.m. I start blanking. Well, I'm just gonna hit this X, and you better not get mad at me. You know, I think... Oh yeah, I redid the layout. I redid the schedule, and now it's bigger. So now it's like over there now. I should fix that. And maybe make it smaller. Is this good? Can you all see this? This is next week's schedule. Yeah, I'm starting another RPG. I haven't played an RPG in a while, and it'll be MSX March. So we're playing Emerald Dragon on the MSX2. I think it and the Super Nintendo version are the only versions of Emerald Dragon that are translated. Oh, did everyone know this game? I'm only just finding out about this game like the last couple months ago. I think the yeah, I think the SNES version is pretty well known, but it originally started life as a PC 98 game. Oh, okay. I wonder why recently both of you caught the SNES game attention. But yeah, there's a SNES version, there's a PC Engine CD version. That one would be hard because it has a lot of voice acting. There's an FM Towns version, but that one, no one ever translates FM Towns games, and that also has voice acting. Yeah, I believe it's PC 98. Yeah, Basement Brothers did a video on it. I think I watched it, but I think I tried to not watch it at the same time because I didn't want to spoil myself. You didn't play it too long in the SNES 15 years ago? I'm told that the SNES version is not the greatest, but I'm excited to try the MSX2 version. It's not as good as the PC 98 version, but it still has a lot of its charm points, and it's translated. So, you know, I gotta take what I can get, right? Unless I find out the PC 98 version is translated, but I don't think it is. There's not a whole lot of PC 98 translations. You know what is translated on PC 98? The Rants games. Like every Rants game is translated. You got to play as a dragon. Yeah, I believe there's dragon people that are sometimes disguised as humans. I think one of your dudes is a dragon person, and then there's some stuff. There's something about the Emerald Dragon. I like I said, I tried to not watch the video, but watch the video. I watched it, but I didn't internalize anything. Yeah. We'll find out. So yeah, here's the schedule. It's a busy week because normally I take off on Monday. But Tuesday I need to finish Urban Runner. It might happen later that day. It might happen at 4. But we need to get through Urban Runner. This has been on the schedule for way too long. All I have to do is get through 1.5 discs of Urban Runner. And usually the last disc doesn't have much in comparison. So I'm hoping to get through it and just be done with it. It's a funny game. I liked it a lot. It's very French adventure game, and it's very French F&B game. But it's been on here for too long. I need to get rid of it. I won't even remember how to play it. I'm gonna have to watch the VOD to remember how to play it. And then Wednesday we're playing Woody Poco. This is a game that's also on many systems, like the Famicom Disk System and PC 98 and PC 88. I don't know how to describe Woody Poco except that we are a wooden puppet boy, and we're gonna go on an adventure. Friday is Emerald Dragon, big RPG hours. The SNES game takes about 15 to 17 hours from the how long to beat that I looked at. So we'll see. I know that version might have some smaller maps and stuff to be easier, so it might be longer, but maybe we'll get through it. in like 3 months. It could be cut down to fit on the cartridge. It could also be that PC. So Emerald Dragon, I think on MSX2 is like 6 discs or something, right? It could just be like I said, the space is not there and they had to cut things down. It could be that, like you said, the port is very different. I know also the PC Engine CD version is also very different. But that one has the advantage of, hey, CD-ROM storage. Yeah, there could be SNES ROM issues with that, like size storage. There could also be like a typical MSX2 disc. Well, actually, I was looking at PC88 discs, but let me look at my... Can I look at this? How long will this take me? I keep my translations over here. Emerald Dragon. Okay, Emerald Dragon's actually only 4 discs, with a 5th disc as just a user disc. But each disc is 720 kilobytes. 720 kilobytes. So we're looking at, you know, over 2 megs. Almost 3 megs, right? Like, I don't know what SNES cartridges are. The biggest NES cart is like 1 megabit, right? And that's Battle of Slater Glory, which I will play. I want to play that. I think I want to play that this year once I get done with 428. They can go up to 4. Wow. Was that like megabytes or megabits? Like, I just took a scroll through this Japanese translation, or for M, and like Mono Monogatari is 2 megabytes. And that's like the biggest thing on this list right now. The Chrono Trigger, where are you at? Where is Chrono Trigger? There you are. Chrono Trigger is 4 megs. Star Ocean has like crazy compression, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it was on one of the bigger SNES carts. It has like English voice acting. This cart, this ROM listed here is 6 megs, but I don't know if that's like uncompressed because they originally Star Ocean could not be emulated because of its compression algorithm. So I don't know if it's 6 megs with the compression or without. But yeah, that has to be the top side of SNES games. Wolf Team did Tales of Fantasia. Star Ocean is Tri-Ace. Yeah, Tales of Fantasia has a full vocal song. Yeah, so I don't know if the ROMs that I have are like with the compression algorithm chip or not, you know? They had to have a separate chip probably, right? Tales of Fantasia also listed here as 6 megs, so maybe that's just how much a SNES cart tops off. Street Fighter Alpha 2, that's another game that used crazy compression. Street Fighter Alpha 2. Yeah, that ROM is only 4 megs in my collection. Yeah, it's okay. I can tell you exactly where Wolf Team ends and Tri-Ace begins and whatnot. Anyway, Saturday we're gonna do the golf. If you remember last week we did golf and the week before. So this is week 3. That'll be at this channel. You can catch that at 7 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, so I don't know if that 6 megs I'm reading in the ROM is with the compression chip or without. Couldn't tell you. I just have a ROM set that works in my EverDrive. Anyway, yeah, we're still talking about the higher end of SNES cartridges, you know? And like I said, the 4 discs of it's 4 times 720. So I think it's like, what, 3.8? Something megabytes? that's still at like the higher end of SNES carts that maybe they didn't want to do, you know? Actually, I was just in the SNES thing. I could just look up Emerald Dragon. Emerald Dragon. Yeah, Emerald Dragon has a 2 meg cart. So yeah. Ooh, Emmett's got a 3 meg cart. Look at you, Emmett. Emmett is the game from Koei that teaches you English. So you can actually kind of play it as an English speaker. In the SNES version came with a CD-ROM and a special attachment that connected to the second controller port and would have infrared signals, right? So it would tell your CD player when to play a track. So it was a SNES game that also needed a CD player, like a fancy one with remote control, which, you know, this is 90, I don't know when this cart came out, mid 90s. It would then, you'd have to have the CD in the CD player, the remote blaster pointed at the CD player, and then the game would tell it when to play voices, because that was the whole point of the game. And yeah, Emmett's fun. Emmett's wild. I kind of want to show off Emmett at one point. I'll probably play the Saturn version or the PlayStation version. Because, you know, like I said, the SNES version's a little hard. I don't know what we'd get out of it, but maybe we can learn some Japanese via, you know, the reverse of, like, that is a game designed to teach you English. Japanese speaker how to speak. Japanese speaker to teach English. So as an English speaker, we can look at it and, I don't know, infer Japanese things. Anyway, I need to stop talking. I need to go. It's already 2:10. I have to go wake up tomorrow and get medication and do some other errands before streaming tomorrow, which is why I said stream might be delayed till 4 tomorrow. Yeah, I'm gonna try to have a good night. Thank you all for joining. I know 428 is kind of endeavor at night. Like, we don't get a lot of, it's pretty quiet over here. Is what I'm saying, but I appreciate you all being here. I could raid the last seahorse. They're the ones that we're gonna be golfing with. Yeah, I feel like that's what we're gonna do. I don't know what they're doing, but I'm just gonna raid them because I've never gotten to raid them before. Looks like they're watching Tecmon videos. Oh, the thumbnail was a Tecmon video, but now they're watching some other video. Anyway, go say hi. Have a good rest of your day. Get some sleep, get some hydration. And I'll see you later. Bye.